go ahead and call the Select Board meeting to order for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. This meeting of the Hopkins Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. All members of the meeting will be present this evening that are here and attending. So the public has the option of attending here in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First up, public forum. Residents are invited to share ideas, opinions, or ask questions regarding their town government. Anyone like to join us? Mr. Weissman, please.
Ken Weissmantel, 145 Ash Street, continuing the series on water and sewer. I'd like to ask the Select Board and the water and sewer customers that are listening, how many gallons is 100 cubic feet of water? I know you can't answer me during this public comment, but I would be surprised if anyone on the Select Board can actually answer that question.
I believe we could Google it.
And I think very few of your customers would know this question. Why is it important? You, as water and sewer commissioners, sell water and sewer services in units that nobody understands. When the water department advocates for conservation, citizens need to understand what you're trying to get them to conserve. For example, a toilet can waste 250 gallons a day, a leaky toilet with a medium leak, 250 gallons a day. How many hundreds of cubic feet is that? Most importantly, in order to get Water Resources Commission regulatory approval for the interbasin transfer associated with the connection with the MWRA, customer bills must be in gallons. That is going to be a requirement of it. So if you're thinking this sounds like Water Resources Commission micromanagement of water department operations, you're likely right. It is. However, if you want to get an interbasin transfer, this is one of the prices that you're going to have to pay. This is also the easiest of a whole long list that the Water Resources Commission is going to require you to implement. And it's the least intrusive of all the changes that will be mandated by the Water Resources Commission. So please make the change to gallons in the next rate setting cycle. Save time and your consultant money during the approval process, because otherwise we at the regulatory board will discuss it for a long, long time, and you're going to be paying a bill for something you're going to end up doing anyway. And then your customers will understand kind of what they're buying. And by the way, the answer to my original question was 100 cubic feet of water is 748.051948 gallons. Don't be too bad. I had to Google it myself. Didn't feel too bad.
Thank you. Anybody else? That is a hard act to follow, please.
Yeah.
Rob Scott, 28 Fruit Street. I'm here on behalf of the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. So kind of piggybacking off of what Ken just said, we're here to kind of let you guys know that we've been meeting regularly. We've been meeting with Mr. Weissmantel and Lance, going over everything. And we're really looking to forward the funding for the design on this thing, for the MWRA setup. I know Kerry had told us they're already approved. They got 30% down. They're 30% approved already. They're looking to push it further to 50%. But based on the discussions and the stuff that we've been going over, it's pretty pertinent to get it moving sooner rather than later. So we're kind of seeing a little bit more of a dire need based off of not so much the PFAS and stuff like that, but mainly volume, and what we're taxing our wells with now is a really big concern. And we just wanted to show up tonight to advocate for whatever we can do to help move the design funding along.
Great.
And that's it.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Great. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Do we put that on a future agenda? I think next.
Yeah, we're going to have a joint thing, right? Yeah.
Okay.
We'll come to that when we get through it. Okay.
Okay, great.
Anybody else? Hi, Sabine. Well, how are you?
It's been a while. All right, Sabine St. Pierre, One Woody Island. I'm the president of the Lake Maspinock Preservation Association and also a lake resident. So I'm here speaking in favor of the request that Parks and Rec is going to be putting in, one of their requests, to finalize the project at Sandy Beach for the beach parking lot and the boat ramp. So back in 2015, LMPA partnered with Parks and Rec to do a big celebration and grand reopening of the beach after we spent a lot of money as a town to fix it up, and it's beautiful down there. Hopefully you've all been down there. But the parking lot and the boat ramp never got, that part of that project didn't get completed. So it's been 10 years. Parks and Rec and DPW have worked hard to do a lot of patchwork over the last 10 years, but hopefully this will get funded and they will be able to finally put a complete on this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 3 on the agenda is a fiscal year 2024 audit report. I believe the audit report is in front of everyone, correct? And we have 5 minutes on the agenda for this report right here, so we'll see how that goes. Sir, please introduce yourself. Or Elaine, do you want to introduce the topic first, and then we'll go from there?
Sure. Terenzio Volpicelli is here, our auditor, to describe the report that you've received.
Okay, great.
Cindy Johnston, town accountant, is with them.
Great, thank you.
Chairperson Hare, members of the Select Board, Town Manager Lazarus, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Terenzio Volpicelli. I'm a certified public accountant and a representative of the firm Roselli Clark and Associates with offices in Woburn and Hopedale, and we were engaged to perform a financial statement audit for the town's financial statements for the year ended June 30th of 2023. 24. This was the second year of a 3-year engagement, which was dated May 5th of 2023. Oh, Cinco de Mayo. You should have received a couple reports from me. One is a 4-page document we refer to as our required communications letter, and then the 60-page behemoth, which is your financial statements themselves. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading the required communications letter, but I do want to touch upon a couple things. First thing, this was the audit of the financial statements, which is just that, an audit of the financial statements. This was not a forensic audit. The purpose of a forensic audit and a financial statement audit are not the same. Some of the highlights in this required communication letter include that management, which includes the folks in this room, are responsible for the selection and employment of appropriate accounting policies. Accounting estimates and their related disclosures are an integral part to the financial statements. The most sensitive accounting estimates and disclosures affecting your financial statements surround your pension, OPEB, and your allowances for doubtful accounts. I'm happy to say that we did not encounter any significant difficulties in completing the 2024 financial statement audit and did not have any disagreements with management on any accounting, reporting, or any other auditing matter. There is a new accounting pronouncement that will affect the town next year, and it is briefly summarized in this required communications letter surrounding compensated absences, so there will be likely a prior period adjustment to conform 24 balances to 2025. The town's 2024 audited financial statements were issued on January 13th of 2025 with an unmodified or clean audit opinion. I'm happy to say that there are no internal control matters or deficiencies observed during the audit that would require formal communication to you folks. The audited financial statements consist of several key elements. The audit opinion itself, which again is a clean or unmodified audit opinion. Management's discussion and analysis, which is required supplementary information. The government-wide financial statements, and these 3 pages in your document report the town's operations and financial position as if it were a publicly held company like an EMC. You have the fund financial statements, which are on a modified accrual basis. Those most closely resemble your internal accounting records. There are proprietary fund financial statements for your sewer, water, and solid waste. Those 2 are also on full accrual, as if you were a public company. You have the fiduciary financial statements, which report your OPEB trust and some private purpose trusts that you have, which are primarily for scholarships. The notes to the financial statements, then finally, at the end of the document, there are some required supplementary information schedules surrounding your pension, OPEB, and budget to actual performance. In terms of budgetary flexibility, a common measure used by rating agencies, including S&P, which is your rating agency, is to evaluate a community's unassigned and assigned fund balances in its general fund as a ratio to its normal operating expenses and transfers out. That's referred to as a reserve ratio. The town's 2024 reserve ratio was over 31%, which is quite strong in the S&P matrix, which again makes sense because you are a AAA community. The town has entered fiscal year 2025, for which we're almost 3/4 of the way through, with some significant reserves. There's about $5.4 million in general and specialized stabilization funds, and the town expects to have certified free cash for approximately $10 million. In terms of budget to actual performance on a statutory basis, the town's fiscal year 24 revenues and other financing sources exceeded its expenditures by nearly $9 million. And the town carried over $359,000 in articles and encumbrances into fiscal year 2025. Actual statutory-based revenues exceeded budget by nearly $3.6 million, while expenditures and carryover articles were nearly $10 million, $10.3 million lower than budget. In 2024, the town did not complete any general obligation bond issuances. It does, however, have $17 million of temporary borrowings in the form of a bond anticipation note, which currently has a stated interest rate of 4.5% and is scheduled to mature in June of 2025. The audited financial statements include on pages 41 and 42 5-year payout schedules, so you can see exactly how your long-term debt is scheduled to mature over the next 20-plus years. In addition to the long-term debt, the town, like many of its other Massachusetts peers, faces significant future obligations with respects to pension and OPEB. With respects to pension, you're a member of the Middlesex County retirement system, so a lot of the decisions on the pension are really out of your hands, save potentially establishing a pension reserve stabilization fund. At December 31st of 2023, which is the same reporting period that's used for your June 30th of 24 financial statements, the pension system was approximately 59% funded. That's up slightly from the prior year. The next valuation, which is in process as we speak, will likely have a better funding ratio because the S&P 500 did a 23% return in calendar year 24. So we would expect that the pension system would have participated in that significant return. So I would expect that the funding ratio would go up. With respects to OPEB, the town's OPEB plan is approximately 15% funded at June 30th of 2024. The town has accumulated nearly $6.3 million in OPEB funds, and your independent actuary estimates that total liability is about $42 million. The town, last year we talked about ARPA. The town has actually expended all of its ARPA funds through June 30th of 2024, so there's no risk of actually turning back any of those funds. And then finally, we continue to remind the town of some of the risks that it faces, particularly with respects to phishing scams, network security. We've had some conversations with the folks in Treasury because that's the department that's most likely to get affected, particularly with the phishing scams. I would hope that they keep up their diligence. And finally, I'd like to say this was the second year working with Cindy, and her team produced quality reports for us, which facilitated our completion of this audit in a very timely manner. That concludes the formal part of my presentation.
Great, thank you.
A little bit more than 5 minutes.
No findings.
We had no internal control weaknesses or significant deficiencies.
That's great. Well done.
And I believe the single audit was filed today also. The
That's not
federal
easy.
audit.
That's not easy, so well done. You saw me look at you on that 17 million. Was that a school? No, it's a short-term. Yeah. Okay, all that was part of, got it.
Chairman Hur, if you go to page 39, there's a detail of,
Page 39, I missed that page.
top of page 39, you can see exactly what comprises that $17 million.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Ridbush, any questions, comments?
I don't think I have any questions. I'm happy to hear that our reserve ratio is strong still. And I guess the question would be, are we doing the fake phishing training, simulated phishing and other cybersecurity measures?
We do cybersecurity training.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have.
Mr. Clark?
No questions. First time going through it on the board and looking through the financial statement, so everything was pretty straightforward and clear from my understanding, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you for an opinion. You've gone through all of this. How do you feel that the town is doing in general?
Well, I think my opinion really relates
Yeah.
to the financial statements themselves, these figures that are contained herein. As of June 30th of 2024, accurately reflect the town's financial position and results of operations for that year. I am happy, over the years, that reserve ratio has come up quite significantly. I think in our first engagement in about 5 or 6 years ago, that number was below 15%. So it has done very well. Of course, there's also been.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say on OPEB or, no, I meant, no, the reserve ratio.
Yeah, okay.
Your OPEB has done pretty well also, but that over the last several years has been a significant influx of federal monies, particularly in the form of ARPA and ESSER and other funds, which has allowed a lot of communities to bolster their reserves. You folks have definitely bolstered your reserves as a result, and judging by what you have coming ahead of you with future debt service, you're going to need those reserves.
Could you repeat that, please?
Over the last several years, you have been able to bolster a lot of your reserves through the influx of federal monies in the form of particularly ESSER and ARPA. That has resulted in your reserves coming up significantly. And again, that reserve ratio is roughly 31%. We first started with you folks about 5 years ago, it was about 15%. You have a lot of capital projects coming into the future, so having those reserves is going to be pretty important rolling into the future.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
No.
Ms. Lazarus, anything? Well, we appreciate you coming in. We appreciate you sharing the report with us. Is this a statutory requirement? Will this then go to the DOR or anyone, or how does it get circulated?
I can handle that question. We have provided this report to you several weeks ago, so this will go to your bond advisor for inclusion in your continuing disclosures. Your single audit, which is what's filed with the federal government, actually just got done several hours ago. So you are actually current on all of that, and the Department of Revenue does get a copy of this report.
Okay, great.
And I know it was in our packet, but it will also be separately on the finance part of the website, I presume?
Yes, I should put it today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate good news, and we'll try to keep at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't need to vote anything, Elaine, correct?
Right.
Okay, next up, item number 4 on the agenda is an employee introduction. Police Chief Bennett will introduce Leon Albino, the Hopkinton Police Department's jails diversion clinician, to the Select Board and the community. Chief Bennett.
Through the chair, good evening.
Welcome.
Tonight I'm here to introduce a new team member and just cover a little bit about the program and the value add that Leon brings. So years ago, there was a pivotal shift in how we perform and deal with specifically people in crisis. Out of that was born a co-response model where master's level clinicians respond to scenes where someone's in crisis, and they have some primary goals to allow us to avoid arrest or transportation to even transportation to the hospital. And I'm going to hand it over to Lieutenant O'Neill. This program at the executive level is funded through state funding, and there's no cost to the community. I also want to thank Sherburne and Holliston, their town managers, and Mr. Khumalo played a large part in this. And she is actually a Holliston employee, and they're managing the grant, and all of her benefits, payroll, and all that are being paid out of the grant, which we have no question will continue to be funded. It's a very high priority within the state, and it's always been openly said to be a priority. This program was born here, and it's being delivered throughout the country. Another thing that started here and went west. So I want to take a moment to thank you, Lieutenant. Lieutenant O'Neill has been a champion of substance abuse and mental health, works closely with Dawn Alcott and her team, Director Alcott and her team. And he took this program over from Tom Griffin, who really got it, was in the beginning, helped get it going. So that's the executive level, and then I'll hand it off to Lieutenant O'Neill.
Thank you. I was fortunate to take over the position of the jail diversion liaison at the time we worked with advocates. And prior to that, there was really not a lot of mental health as long as the law enforcement side. It was either we would go to a situation where someone clearly needed help, but it was either an arrest or a non-arrest situation. And then hopefully down the road, they would get the help they need. With the clinician program that we have now, we're actually bringing the help to them. So we can prevent people from avoiding jail time and get the people the help they need right on the scene. Through referrals or from getting them the hospitalization that they need. Having a clinician on board has been a great asset. They have not only helped the people, but they've also educated us as police officers to see what other programs are out there and see how to help with people in mental health crisis. So we're fortunate to have Leon with us. I'm excited to move forward with this program, and it's going to be a great asset to the department as well as the town.
Leon, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Leanne Albino. I am the new clinician. I'm a state licensed mental health counselor. I've been here for about 3 months, though I've been working in a role like this for over 7 years. I worked for Boston Police and Boston Medical Center previously. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm really excited to be out here now and helping them build up this program now that they've been without the clinician for a few years now. We're starting over from the ground up, really reaching out to collaborators in the town and the other resources that are around here to build those relationships up once again.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening. Ms. LaFreniere, questions, comments?
Well, I'm thrilled with this position. It's been much needed for a while, I believe, and I love to see the coordination between the towns, that we can actually work together and have a substantial result from it. And we welcome you to Hopkinton.
Thank you.
No questions. I think, anything that can help with mental illness and how we support it and treat it is tremendously important. So glad to have you on board. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. We're really glad to have this program back. Anytime we can prevent someone from going to jail and help them get the help they need, I think that's our responsibility as a community, and it doesn't clog up the police department with things that it can be handled otherwise. So welcome.
Not to put you on the spot, but like, what would be like some of the top 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things? What are the things you need from the community so that you can be successful in what you do? Like, what would you want from us representing all 20,000 of us here?
That's a good question. So right now, as Leon stated before, we're essentially building the program from the ground up. So establishing relationships with hospitals, mental health professionals, and the support has been great. Like I said, I don't want to say it's trial and error, because before we had advocates, it's kind of plug and play. So I think, as us, I can speak as a police department, and I think we are good at what we have right now. It's just going to take a little time, but we are out there in the community treating and helping people at the moment.
Yeah, I would think making sure we all know that this is available to us as a community, and having Leon around and, able to engage, so, we spread the word. I would think from all sides would make sense.
Through the chair, I couldn't agree more, and we just thought it was appropriate to introduce Leon to you, and then we're going to launch a more robust community education program, and but we felt we should start here.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's great. Thank you. We're happy to help any way we can. So please let us know, and if you need to come talk to us, feel free at any time. So it's great work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, and no vote required there, obviously. Item number 5, always fun, the parade permit application for the Boston Marathon is to be held on April 21st, 2025. The Select Board will approve considering a parade permit for the 129th Boston Marathon to be held on Monday, April 21st, 2025. And we have some invited guests to join us.
Thank you.
In years past, when I did this, I would be nervous when I would do this, because I'd say, oh, crap, I got to do this thing again. Like, oh, I got to go run it. But I'm quite calm now. Welcome. Elaine, do you want to introduce the topic as well and sort of share public safety thoughts and things like that?
Yes, sure. It's the annual request for a parade permit for the Boston Marathon, 129th this year. So it's very exciting. The application was submitted some time ago, so all the departments have had a chance to review everything and have offered their recommendations and comments, and those meetings are continuing to be held up until, I think, the evening before, perhaps, but the discussion is ongoing about all the public safety and other matters that are involved.
Everything's headed in the right direction.
Yes.
From your vantage point?
Yes.
So this is your first Boston Marathon as the town manager?
True.
Right? And this will be Lance's first Boston Marathon, period. So, very
We
exciting.
tried to convince him to run, he said.
Sorry?
We tried to convince Lance to run.
Excellent. Ways from that.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Elaine. Jack, you want to start off?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. And through the Select Board Chair, we truly are appreciative of the time to be able to talk just a little bit about the main event that we put on and answer any questions that you or anybody else may have. I'm joined tonight by, I'm Jack Fleming, President and CEO. I'm joined tonight by Lauren Proshan and Dan Satchwell from the BAA team. We also, I would be remiss, also in the room is Dottie Ferreter from the Hopkinton Marathon Committee, who we work very, very closely with. Would you like to join, Dottie?
Please join.
Thank you.
Jack, do you want to come up?
He is
Jack?
announced.
Jack will do.
Jack's all good.
He is
Thank you
the
for
voice.
thank you for
Okay.
joining Jack as well. We recently had a meeting with the Hopkinton Marathon Committee down the street, and it was very productive. So whether it be with the Hopkinton Police Department, Hopkinton Fire Department, Recreation and Parks, Department of Public Works, Hopkinton Public Schools, Hopkinton Marathon Committee, of course. Who am I missing? This is an example that it really does take a village to put on an event of this magnitude. And we know that it doesn't occur without your permission. We are a nonprofit organization that only is able to continue to exist because of the generosity of towns and their opening themselves up to us. Not only Hopkinton, but the other 7 cities and towns that go along the way, but Hopkinton truly does lead the way, figuratively and literally. We've had some wonderful tabletop exercises to go into the public safety aspect of it that Lauren may touch on, but the enthusiasm and the representation from Hopkinton was clear. This is the 129th Boston Marathon. It is on Monday, April 21st. It's the 101st, starting from Hopkinton, the 250th anniversary of Patriots Day, the 50th anniversary of Bob Hall's pioneering effort in a wheelchair. He'll be here with us, as will Bill Rogers, who will also be here celebrating his 50th anniversary of his first victory in 1975. Be exciting to feature that. We're again on internationally ESPN and WCVB to provide that live worldwide coverage. The town looks amazing, if I do say so myself. We look forward to welcoming you all down the street at our renovated property. It's in progress right now at 1 Ash Street at the start line. Hope you will be able to join us. And I would like to say thanks to the cooperation to the Hopkinton Historic District Commission for its help over the years to get that property ready for us. They helped select the color. It was great. We have 30,000 starting, very similar field size, same field size. Similar starting times. Lauren will talk about that. We do wish there are many, dozens and dozens of Hopkinton residents who are running in this year's race, and truly wish them the very best of luck. You see them training around. We watch them from our picture window at the office, training around the Common, and we wish them the best of luck over the next 50 days. I would ask Lauren, if you could, to talk about some of the logistics and operations of this year's race, but thank you.
Great, thanks, Jack.
But before I do, I would like to also call out John from the Hopkinton Parks Department, who we've been working with. Such a wonderful partnership over the last 2 years to really develop the Hopkinton Festival. To see it come in such a long way in 2 years has been a pleasure, and he's just been wonderful to work with. Jack did take a lot of our points, so sorry, we'll breeze through them quite quickly. But as Jack mentioned, Hopkinton High School will play host to those 30,000 athletes before they make their way to the starting line, and Dan and I are going to tag team points here this evening.
So the build out of our pro athlete village, which is exactly on the Common, will be taking place will start on Tuesday, April 15th. We are working with the Parks Department just to make sure that it's ready for the weekend activities. Just to make sure that they have the space and also the equipment, available for them, including into the activities. We have the children's games and food trucks, and also, the use of our tents can be for inclement weather, if the weather is bad, or for any activity that is suitable, to do it inside. Also, the painting of the start line will be on April 16th, and unless there is an issue with the weather, we will move that date. And also our abutters letter, the letter that we normally send to the Hopkinton residents, will be sent 2 weeks before, on April 7th, and just communicating anything related to road closures.
And as the marathon falls on Easter weekend this year, as it does from time to time, we've worked quite closely with Hopkinton High and the school districts to make sure that we're being mindful of Good Friday, and then also working quite closely with the Korean Church to make sure that we've completely removed our activities and our infrastructure from their property to not interfere with any of their services. As Jack mentioned, we're also planning to celebrate America's 250th birthday. So working closely with the Hopkinton Marathon Committee on the programming of the start to make sure that we're highlighting historic programming such as a special start line graphic that's got a nod to our patriotism. Working on our traditional flyover as we have in the past. Daddy's working with us to include Hopkinton school children of various ages to line Marathon Way to escort our pro athletes out to the start line. So that's something that we used to do back in the day that we're bringing back on the occasion of the birthday. And then also working with the Hopkinton Marathon Committee to create what we're calling a row of honor. So as a part in our seating structure for our veterans to be highlighted from different branches of the military to make sure that they are really front and center as part of our seating area at the start line.
Well, as many of you know, our field also includes charity runners, right? So this year we have 176 non-for-profits in the 2025 Bank of America Boston Marathon official charity program. Last year, this program raised 45.7 million, and this year we're trying to match that number or increase it.
And so from a public safety standpoint, as Jack mentioned, working closely with HPD and HFE to look at our public safety plans, and we do this annually, taking into account world events. We audit these areas of weakness and seek to make continued improvements that are both visible, which you will see, improvements to our infrastructure and our perimeter plans, but there's also a lot of improvements that we make that are not visible to the public. And certainly if there's any questions on public safety, I would invite the chief, who's kindly stayed back, to speak to any public safety improvements that he is willing to talk to at this time. He's the expert. We're the event planning experts. And I'd also like to call out more broadly that Hopkinton PD and Fire has supported us in making what to do and how to prevent crowd crush video that we are going to be showing to all of our volunteers all along the course. Crowd crush is when participants or spectators feel as if they're boxed in and they tend to move in one direction. So how to prevent that from happening. So it's really looking at the science of how people move in a confined area and how to alleviate that. So again, a special thanks to HPD and HFD for helping us with that. And then finally, of course, looking at the areas of improvement. So what we heard from 2024 and how we can be better and better neighbors to Hopkinton. So looking at our seating structure and how we can improve how people's bills, our special guests of Hopkinton, how can we improve our start seating area and their structure. So working with our Hopkinton Marathon Committee and how we can make improvements there. Also working with our partners at DPW and our cleaning of our entire area, so that's our trash, our equipment, making sure that we are leaving it as we have found it. And then always we are looking at our accessibility across the entirety of the event, but making sure that our athletes, our spectators, and anyone who's attending our event has the same experience regardless of how they, what their physical abilities are. So that is the Boston Marathon in a nutshell, and in Hopkinton, as we are. We're, of course, always happy to take questions as well.
No, on behalf of the Marathon Committee, I just want to thank the BAA, the town departments, residents, the select board, and everybody coming together and making this race. I mean, it is the BAA's race, but there's a lot of effort that goes on in the town, and it just totally amazes me every year that it goes seamlessly, and I really appreciate that the BAA has taken into consideration the interests and the comments that the Marathon Committee and other residents have made and really elevated some of the areas and the concerns. So I couldn't, be happier, and I just want to thank them. Dan, Lauren, and Jack for all they've done. So.
Great. Well, thank you all very much for the presentation and the input. It's such a great event, I could talk forever. It's just awesome. What I was thinking about as we were sitting here chatting, you guys were talking, you guys have an amazing brand. And the fact that our brand is tied to your brand in many ways, and the brands get stronger and stronger and stronger every year, is a really great opportunity for the town of Hopkinton, for sure. So we appreciate the opportunity to be part of this race and to be part of the brand that's just world-renowned and known for so much good. $45.7 million last year. I'll bet you it's 50 this year. That's an amazing thing in itself, and that's just one piece of this big puzzle here. So congratulations, and it's an awesome event, and we're excited to host it. Here is the start line once again. Ms. Lafreniere.
I just want to say thanks, Jack and MEAA. Last year was a wonderful year. The Common was great, and everything we did. And I just wanted Dottie to tell us about the children's race, because it was so popular on Saturday. I mean, the parents lined the route, and the kids it was just incredible. They had so much fun. And now they're going to use the children, too, on Marathon Day to line the route. But I just want everybody to know that we are making that available again this year. And we have vendors on the Common for Saturday. Great. That was a beautiful year.
100-yard dash was a major success. We were overwhelmed with the kids. We were going to take the first 100, recognizing the 100 starts in Hopkinton. We ordered 150, and we filled it. So this year, we decided to up the ante. We're going to have 200 able to run. We heard from parents. We just got an email from a little Arabella from town, and her mother wrote on behalf of her because she said it was the best thing she did all year. So that's kudos to everybody. But I think just adding that element and having the BAA support has just been great for the town, and then just utilizing the middle school students for this effort of the pro athletes and everything is going to be very impressive. So looking forward to that, and anything we can do to bring the kids in, because one day they'll be running this race, and maybe running the
I was going to say, organizing it.
They absolutely were so enthusiastic, and so were the parents. The parents, lots of parents lining the road, and it was exciting. It was really a lot of fun for us too. Thank you.
Mr. Clark.
First off, thank you, everyone. Great to have you guys here. Always look forward to the Marathon Day. My only question is, any kind of changes to the schedule of the day on Marathon Day from last year?
Wheelchairs will be adjusted by 2 minutes, respectively.
2 minutes. Perfect. Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
No, I want to say thank you. I think you answered all my questions in your presentation, so I don't think I really have much left for questions. And you guys do a good job on your website communicating all the logistics, because I know at the last minute we always get questions from people about, well, if I don't live near the start line, how do I get there? And, but you have all that information on your website, so we really appreciate that. And I'm really glad you're continuing the Parks Department is continuing the festival on the Common, and then you're doing the fun run. That looks like those are really good. And I'm glad you finally got the building painted blue. I remember we approved that 2 or 3 years ago, and you were going to wait till the downtown project was almost done.
The details were fantastic coming from the commission, whether it be the way it was paved or the bulbs to be used, or just right down to the hardware that could be seen from the street. So it was very helpful to us in the process.
And it was a little bit of a bold move changing the color, but we thought it was historically appropriate. And I haven't heard any complaints yet. Hopefully, have you? No? Okay. That's good.
Win all around.
It is, exactly.
Close. Not spot on. It's good.
Yeah. So anyway, wish you good luck. And hope everything goes smoothly.
All set? Elaine, anything else? Thoughts?
No, I think it's just very exciting. The sense of excitement that builds in the community over the months leading up to it is really wonderful, and just don't see that anywhere else. So I think that's wonderful.
Let's just for a sec talk about the downtown corridor project and the improvements that are going on. We're gonna start, we never really stopped this winter. In years past, well, a couple years, we didn't do anything for a while because we didn't get the transformers and blah, blah, blah. But this year, we kept going. They were out there today. They took the last of the tops off down here, if anybody saw that, at the intersection. Now the Eversource high voltage wires through the center of town are gone. So they're completely done with overhead, and now they're fully underground, and there's no remaining wires left. The poles come down after a couple other things happen. But we're going to keep going. So we're going to keep going, I think, till about 2 to 3 weeks, maybe. Didn't we pick a date that we would stop and suspend everything so that there would be no problems with you folks? But if you're coming out between now and then, and there's a lot of trucks around doing a lot of work, don't worry. We'll get them out of your way. But we want to keep going because we got to get this thing done. It's been dragging on for lots of different reasons.
That's good. Thank you for that. And we've noticed on the weekends, the Eversource truck staging, I think, in our back lot down the street, and we understand what's going on.
Yeah, so that will continue right up until, I think it might be a week. I think it was 2 weeks that was in the plan, but don't worry about it. If there is a problem, just let us know. But that will continue on, and then next year, there won't be any trucks here. There'll be trees everywhere out here. The pavement will be smooth, and no one will sprain an ankle or anything like that.
Yes, you better knock on wood.
It'll be all buffed out. So just hang in there with us. But we'll have it looking as good as we can come mid-April.
Before and after, we look forward to the time-lapse videos that show the change.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice when it's done. Okay, with that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve a parade permit for the 129th Boston Marathon to be held on April 21st, 2025, as submitted.
I move to approve the parade permit for the 129th Boston Marathon to be held on April 21st, 2025, as submitted.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. We're looking forward to it, folks.
Thank you.
Always a lot of fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And I don't have to train. Okay, next up on the agenda, Capital Improvements Committee. The Capital Improvements Committee has requested that the Select Board consider its guidance for the FY26 budget and capital process pertaining to the use of certified free cash and borrowing for enterprise fund projects. Sorry. Item number 6. Mr. Kisner, Matt Kisner is here with us this evening. He's the chair of the Capital Improvements Committee here in Hopkinton. Matt, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to introduce the topic as well?
So in the packet is a memo statement from Matt describing the process that the CIC has gone through and some questions and discussion points that he has with the board this evening regarding the budget process.
Okay. Matt, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I apologize from the uplifting and wonderful work that the marathon does to the cold realities of our capital budget, but that was your agenda. So yes, I do have a bit of a lengthier statement here. In the interest of time and surprising some, I'm not going to try and read through all of it. My hope here, Chairman Hearn, to the rest of the board is to just have a little bit of a dialogue with you on behalf of the board. So my intent here is to just kind of go through how we approached prioritizing in our decisions this cycle, kind of get to the question around priorities and philosophy, and then hopefully just have a dialogue with you here. So at the beginning of the financial budgetary planning period, the Select Board met with CIC Appropriations, the school committee, CFO, and the town manager respectively. And we had an open conversation about the complexity of the budget situation and the high cost of living, especially in correlation to the increase in upcoming property taxes. That $12,000 to $18,000 I'm always talking about was acknowledged. And I thought the message, especially from you, Chairman Herr, was rather clear. A bottom-up budget and a tightened belt with level services would be necessary for all. I think I caught all of the buzzwords. So we chose to interpret this very specifically. So CIC chose to interpret this guidance from the Select Board in an aggressive and specific manner, committing to develop a taxpayer-neutral framework for the capital plan. So typically when items have come before CIC in the past, we've kind of evaluated them on what I would describe as reasonable merit. Does the police chief need a cruiser? Is the cruiser at the end of the life cycle? Is he asking me for a reasonable replacement? As long as he doesn't try to convince us it's a Porsche, we historically have supported those requests. And we haven't really dug into them and how they've adhered to town philosophy and vision. But because because of the budgetary challenges and the message this year, we really did take a different approach. And so we dug into those things a little bit differently. So we asked a little bit more than, was it just a Porsche? Was it on the plan? Did you really need it? Other questions of that nature. Ultimately, the committee only approved 60% of the items that came before us. In my entire time on the committee, I'm not entirely sure that we have ever declined to support anything. So this is pretty unusual for us. I'm joining you today and hoping to have a conversation because there's a lot of uncertainty now around intended allocations of free cash. So both in committee as well as just in passing, we've had conversations about free cash items being used for capital expenses not endorsed by the committee. We've had conversations about use of free cash to support the Water and Enterprise Fund because it's not currently solvent or liquid, pun somewhat intended. And we're also having conversations about other challenges and constraints. So at the time, our cost benefit was really based on, it seemed to us there was about 8 to 10 million. Here's how we prioritized. I'm coming back to you now looking for a little bit of guidance and to have a dialogue about, did we hear you correctly? Do you really want us going that far down the rabbit hole, or are we just supposed to do a Porsche check? I don't have a particular opinion about that, and I'm really proud of the work that the committee's done. We want to make sure we're in line with your vision, and if we are, I'd like to ask some other questions about how you'd like to see us approach prioritizing, and potentially if you're intending us to save some of the additional free cash that may be available, or if the hope is that we're doing an allocation for all of the items presented to us this year. So with that, I guess I'll conclude my opening and pause here a little bit, and thank you again for listening.
Great. Thank you, Matt, for coming in.
Thank you, Matt.
For the intro. Yeah, I think it's a really good conversation to have to make sure we're all on the same page and make sure that, you know, our CFO and the rest of the team, financial team, understands sort of what the community is looking for. Mrs. Ritterbusch, thoughts, comments on Matt's presentation in general?
Well, I had a question about the free cash for water projects. We would not normally do that, right? Water projects would come from the water fund.
Correct. That's the purpose of the enterprise fund, is it's sustained by the users.
Right. So we're not asking for water funds from free cash, are we?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
You technically have projects which do not currently have a source of funding from the water enterprise. I would assume that when you hear from Ms. Reed later, she will request support to fund those.
I think one of the things being considered is borrowing.
Okay.
But the borrowing may be paid through the enterprise
The ratepayers,
fund.
yeah.
Yep. Still,
The enterprise fund is set up for a reason, to be an enterprise unto itself, correct? Correct. So I think that's what, Amy, is that what you're suggesting?
Right. I don't want the 30% of the people who are not on town water, I wouldn't want them to have to pay for the water projects, just the people that use the water. Yeah.
no, but they would be impacted by the overall addition to the town debt ratio. So while they would not pay, they do bear the burden of being part of the community that is.
Sure. Yep. Okay. And then, see, what were the other questions for us?
I'm really trying to understand, in a world where there is potentially free cash left over. So the committee had a primary recommendation of 4.9 million, and then a secondary and a tertiary that brought us to around 6.6. In a world where there is, let's say, money left over, Kyla opens the drawer and we find some money in the cushions. Would you want us to just go back and approve the items that we didn't approve based on a cost-benefit analysis and an expectation that we wouldn't have the money available? Should we be holding that money for a rainy day? Is it the role of the committee to be assessing the validity and benefit of these things to the town, or am I simply looking at the Porsche check? I don't think we've ever really established what the intent and criteria of the committee is. It just has a role, which is non-budgetary expenses of more than $25,000 come before us. And I'm not challenging that, but I want to ensure that I'm aligned with how you'd like to see us executing that, given the urgency and criticality of the capital budget and the topic and how it's impacting the town.
Anything else, Amy?
So for myself, I guess I would say it's good to be flexible and fluid during this budget season, because when we get our free cash number, and when things change, maybe we could fund more. And so I think it would be great if you could retake a look at it. And that's just when, as a financial picture is clearer. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, good.
So I think the way you described, like, interpreting his and the board's budget message was accurate, right? You're looking deeper, as you said, you haven't gone this far before, but the town hasn't been in this financial situation before, right? So I think it was warranted, and I agree with the approach. I think what we heard earlier from our auditors was, we're in good shape today, right? We have reserves. Reserves are healthy over the last couple of years, but we're going to need those in future years due to, like, the debt service level. So I guess kind of similar to what Amy said, I think, we continue on in the process. I think everything you've done, in my opinion, has seemed like the right approach to that. And then we evaluate things as we go, as we get closer towards the end of this process and town meetings, that we know exactly where we stand, and we make decisions based off what the reserves are going to look like and how can that help us in future years.
Thank you.
Okay, good?
I'm good.
And we'll come back. We're just going to chat for a little bit here. Mary Jo, anything?
Well, this budget is a difficult one, and it's there's a lot of things out there. You have okayed 60%, so that actually isn't too bad. But I don't think we really know where our money is right now. I mean, we have no idea what the government's going to do at the moment. We do have free cash, and we do have certain things, but I think I agree with Amy that we have to continue to be flexible and come up with ideas for money. I actually was talking to people and thinking about the playground issue, and people said to me, why don't we just fundraise it? It's $1 million. Let's go back to the old times and put the thermometer on the common and have, everything we can have. And different groups can do different things, and we should be able to raise that money from the town. But, I don't know how Capital Improvements would think about that or anybody else, but we have to think in new directions too. So I agree with Amy. We have to be flexible right now.
Don't let this face fool you. I make a mean cupcake. And I appreciate that you were thinking creatively about how to enable community priorities without additional allocations of taxpayer funds. That's where we are, and I like that you chose that example. Something I personally support as a citizen, something that the committee didn't recommend for the reasons that we've sort of outlined here. So I hear you about the flexibility as well, and my intent here, as much of anything, was to prime the board that the capital situation is a little more fluid than it has been in the past. We take pride that we're usually done before Christmas, and we're not a problem child for this process. It isn't going to go that way this year for reasons that I think are really good and reflective of a more robust process, but you deserve to know that. And depending on where that free cash figure comes in, obviously this board is elected to make the strategic decisions for that allocation, but I would love the opportunity to come back and discuss what some of the long-range fiscal planning looks like for capital expenses in the coming years. I'd like to strongly suggest that there might be a better opportunity to spend that in future years and not necessarily this year. But that's a conversation I hope we get to have because we find the money.
Ms. Lazarus, any thoughts about the discussion?
Sat through most of the CIC meetings, and I'm very impressed with the work that they've done and the way that they've vetted the various projects. With regard to the use of free cash, I think it's, as Matt said, and others have said, it's really important that we do save some for the future, that we don't just spend it all.
Yeah, I think just based on what everyone was saying and talking about remaining flexible to sort this out over the next few years, I would add one word. We want to be flexible and we want to be frugal. Like, we don't need the Porsche, and I don't think we need to go back and look for something to spend money on this year. If it's not an absolute need, save the money, because we really haven't even got into the meat of the tax increases yet, right? So the worst is yet to come, unfortunately, in the next several fiscal years. So we're going to have to hang on to everything we can, because, at that, what will become free cash going into reserves, that could be our lifeline. And then we look back and say, well, we didn't need whatever it is we buy this year. Like, I'm not into buying stuff right now.
I appreciate the clear-eyed leadership and the longer-range view here. Having this discussion, aligning that that's the priority and supporting that that's the direction we're taking, that's how we get there and we land the plane. We recognize it's challenging times, but being honest about the conversation and where we are, just like any other issue at the dinner table, it's how we find a solution.
Yep, no, I think it's a very healthy conversation to have and an important one. And we heard it, and I assume you knew what I was doing when I said to the auditor, do you mind repeating what you just said? I heard what he said, but I wanted everyone else to hear it again. He said, you guys have some serious debt coming at you, and your reports in the next few years are going to be really interesting to balance out. That's basically what he said. And I wanted, all of us to hear that again. And we can't hear it enough times because we forget. As a community, we build a school or we build this, we build that. We take the vote and we forget before we even build a thing. And then the tax bills start coming like, what's this? Well, we all voted for that, but we can't forget this one because this is a monumental level of debt that we're going to go through here over the next 5 or 7 years. Okay.
Through the chair, if I could, one more thing. So you mentioned that you approved about 60% of the asks that you received. And if the public wanted to see exactly what was approved and not, is that in your meeting packets or how would they find that?
Sure. So I believe we have that information available online. It's certainly in my minutes and in the recordings that we have posted as well. And I do have a copy of the amended table currently submitted in the town report.
In the town report, yeah. I'm just trying to think if, I just looked at your website and I couldn't find it easily, but I'll keep looking.
Nope, I'll take the feedback. I was fortunate to have a meeting with Kyla last Friday where we were talking about what we could put together to try and make the budget a little more accessible. We were hoping to wait until we got what the final figures look like so we could do one slice and one dice.
That's okay. Well, if people could look in your meeting materials for now, that would be fine.
Okay, everybody good?
Yep.
Everyone's good? We're good? Matt, thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate your help very much. Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is the FY26 budget, back to it, and capital meetings. The Select Board will conduct FY26 budget and capital meetings with town departments. We have this evening the Town Clerk's Office, Land Use, Finance, Human Resources, Town Manager's Office, Health Department, Parks and Recreation, Engineering Facilities, and Department of Public Works. So do you have a particular order, Elaine, that you were thinking, or do you want us to just go through them sort of as listed, or should we check to see if anybody's got a personal challenge out there that they need to get to?
You could check for personal challenges. I think that the Zoom host is ready to queue up whichever presentation comes.
Okay, so we don't have it in any particular order. So this could be dangerous. Is there anybody that has anything they have to get to or they're pressing for time? I see a couple of hands up there. I know one is a very young child, so we'll consider that. John had his hand up for something. Why don't we, if that's okay with everybody else, we'll just take it in that order. We are 20 minutes behind schedule. So if we take, how many is this, 9? Minus 2 is 18, times 2 is 18. Everybody gets 8 minutes now instead of 10 minutes or whatever it was to go through these. Sean's convincing me that he's going to do it in 5. I'm going to run the clock on that one. But why don't we go ahead and start with the town clerk's office so he can get home to that child. And then we'll go from there. Mr. Deegan, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I think that the presentation is going to come up. I only have one slide. I'm going to try to make this nice and short for you.
Let me just be, so I want to be fair and equitable at how we set this up, okay? Yep. We have zero interest in how many pens and pencils you're going to buy this year, right? That's your job, right? Our job is just to make sure it's all going to come together and there's nothing glaring missing in what you need. So please spare us some of that.
I am not going to give you any of the weeds unless you want to talk to me offline about it.
Your colleagues from across the town government in the last few weeks have done an excellent job in these presentations. And I know all of you will, with Mr. Deegan starting here this evening. So go right ahead.
So,
no pressure, Connor. Don't
no pressure at all. So as you folks know, I manage 2 departments that will be presenting tonight, one being the town clerk's office, which we, in working with Elaine and Kyla, brought that to exactly the 1.3% increase that was in the message for the select board. And that was primarily just from salaries and such. We really kept everything related to expenses right around what was inflationary costs and decreased whatever we could. For elections and registration, just as I promise every year that we talk about it, and years that we don't have elections, I make sure to return that money back to the town so that we can use that for other high priorities. As we go into another election year, that number is going to go back up, but a presidential election year has a lot more to do than a typical year. So that's why you'll see that that went down by minus 54%. And so that's just to reflect the fact the staffing hours aren't the same when we don't have the need for the number of elections. And so across both of them, minus 12.1%. Again, hopefully we can use some of the savings that we realize here to support some of the departments that do need it right now, because obviously there's always some growing pains across all of these departments. So thank you. I'd gladly entertain any questions. As I said, it's very kind of straightforward. We don't really have much in the way of change and tried to keep as much in the budget message as we could.
Both of these budgets work for you, and you don't feel there's any undue stress or strain on your ability to deliver?
There will certainly be strain on the clerk side. The election side, that is pure and simple, that we were able to remove the things that we didn't need. There will be probably a little bit of strain on the clerk side, but we will find ways to manage it throughout the year. We'll find efficiencies as we can, and that's always the hope. Every single year we go in hoping that we're going to be able to get that number lower and that we can, maybe give some free cash back to use to support the community in other ways.
Okay, great. Ms. Lafreniere, questions?
No, I just wanted to ask, if we start redacting things that have to come out, we get the machine and start doing it, is that going to increase your workload and your budget?
So in redacting of public records, you mean? Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, it probably, I don't know about how much it's going to impact the budget yet, because it's likely just going to be me doing some extra work and my assistant doing some extra work, and we're not necessarily going to get paid any extra for it. If we were to get some sort of software, which would be ideal because it would allow us to better manage the entire workflow, that would be a perfect world scenario. But again, that's really something where, we'd love to have it. It'd make things a lot easier on not just us, but other departments, but we don't know how easy it is to justify it right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Nope.
All set?
Yep. I'll see you Thursday.
First, thanks for getting in line with the budget message, recognizing the strain that it puts on, yourself, especially with a young family. Just with the redaction software, we've talked about this for a couple of months now. Have we gotten to the point where we've reviewed options? I thought we were going to try and start to plan for it, but it wasn't this budget cycle. I don't remember where we left that conversation.
We have reviewed options with a few different vendors and had, a couple quotes that had come in. It's just a case then of if we wanted to pull the trigger, I mean, we have vendors lined up that we could do it with, and we could work out how we're going to handle, starting to be billed partway through a fiscal year and pay less at the beginning of it, with some flexibility on it as well. But that's something we'd have to decide on if that's enough of a priority to go for it.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah, I'm good for now. Thank you, Connor.
Very welcome.
Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Yep, I was going to add for the redaction software, I assume that's an annual fee too, so it's not a capital expense that we just purchase something, we'd be paying it, because we want it to be secure, obviously, and we need to get the updates. Okay.
Yeah, most of them the annual fees aren't too bad for the amount of records that you're managing with them. But yeah, there's going to be an annual cost, and it's a new start. And part of the message was really to try to avoid new starts if we could help it.
All right, and I appreciate the explanation for the public about how some election years are more expensive than others. I think you had 3 or 4 different elections in a presidential year, so that's a lot of work. And you have a new assistant town clerk, so hopefully the workload won't be too bad this year. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know you are, but just for the public record, Elaine, you're in favor of these budgets as submitted?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, great.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
We appreciate
Thank you,
your
Connor.
help very much. Job well done. John, please join us. Next up, we have, what's the name, official name on the deck here?
Land use planning and permitting.
Land planning and permitting. John, please.
All right, so I'm going to be one of the outliers here. We actually have an increase in our budget, and that's due to the assistant town manager becoming the town manager and leaving a vacant seat at the head of the department. So we are establishing a land use director position, which accounts for most of the increase aside from the COLA and other increases in salaries. So the total budget proposed is $649,502.07, which is a 15% increase. I will say that we do have $216,000 and change coming from the building revolving fund. That's 2 full salaries and half of the building inspector's, or the building commissioner's salary. With this introduction of the new position, we're also reducing the salary of the principal planner position. We have 2 new hires, the Director of Municipal Inspections, the building commissioner, and the conservation administrator, and those 2 new hires are a reduction in the salary from FY25, so those are savings. And we can go to the expense, the next slide. So I will say that is an erroneous 4. It should say 37,592. The previous FY25 was 55,827, so it's a reduction in our expenses of 32%. And that really is accounted for the SHSO, which is a recurring cost, and $7,000 for planning board and affordable housing planning reserve.
Okay.
And no capital requests.
No capital requests. Okay. So with a position change of sorts, let's go to Elaine first. Elaine, can you describe all that as well for us, please?
So a number of years ago, there was a director of land use planning and permitting, and that was me. And then when I moved to the town manager's office, that came with me. So I became assistant town manager and still retained the director of the department. Now, handing that back, that work. And so John is now serving as the interim director of land use planning and permitting. And for the next fiscal year, we'll reestablish that director position that used to exist for the department. And then the principal planner will become more of an entry-level position in that respect. So that both planning-related positions will work together. And the director will resume control of the department.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mrs. Frenier, questions, comments?
What about, do you guys do a lot of meetings and things? Do you go places and do things, or do you have a budget for expenses like that?
What type of meetings? Night meetings or just?
No, I'm talking about
development type
professional travel improvement within.
Yeah, so the professional development training conferences budget is, the land use share is about 5,000, and then HR is taking over about 1,300.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, no, I'm fine with it.
Good?
Yep.
Mr. Clark?
I'm good, thanks. Everything was very straightforward going through it, so appreciate the work you put in.
Amy?
I don't think I particularly have any questions. So I have something to ask you, it's unrelated though, that I kept meaning to email you. On our agenda later, we're talking about an economic development committee in town, and we were thinking of having a member of the planning board be assigned to that. So I wondered if you might take that back to them, if that would be if of interest to them to have a representative on that committee.
Yeah, I would imagine they would be interested in that.
Okay, yep. Otherwise, I appreciate the explanations.
You might expect. I want to dig into this new position piece a little bit further. So we had a land use director. That position moved to the town manager's office, so it moved to another budget, correct? Years ago.
The salary did.
The salary did, yeah. And so then that position wasn't filled in the planning department, right?
That's correct.
And we had a principal planner basically running the show, right?
Well, working with the planning board, but not being the director of the department. So I was still the director of the department.
You were still the director of the department, even though you had a
Till last
principal planner who was in with the planning board doing those meetings.
Right, so I was director until last week.
Until last week. Got it, okay. So the salary went to the town manager's budget, and we've been approving the town manager's budget with that salary in there for several years, right? So there won't be some blip over here in the town manager's budget, per se, if we do this, correct?
That's correct.
Because that's been a steady state thing for a while. But back here, we're going to add this position in, even though we have 2 new positions in that group, where the salaries are down because it's new people and they don't have the tenure and so forth. But we're still going to have an increase, which is what we're seeing here, just netting out at 15%. That 15% is netting all that out. Is that correct?
Yes. So those are not two new positions, they're just two new hires in existing positions.
Two new hires in existing positions, correct, yeah. But they're lower salaried because they're new, so therefore there's a savings there. So the 15% represents what number then? What's that 15%, 60 grand or something?
Let's see, it was 35?
What's the budget what's the overall budget number?
I'll have to do that.
Yeah, so what's your total budget number, John?
649.
600 grand. So is that 15%, 10 is 60, is it $90,000?
It wasn't that high.
Yeah, it was
I'm trying to get to.
Oh, that was on the salaries line.
70.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to get another position, Elaine, for not the full amount that that position would typically cost an existing budget because we have the savings and we have the new employees. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and it's not really a new position. I mean, we're reestablishing the positions that used to exist.
Right. But we're not reestablishing it at the full salary that we'd bring somebody in because we already have some savings elsewhere that's going to offset that full salary coming in. That's what I'm trying to get to here.
Yeah, and we do have the building revolving fund, which also supports some of the salaries of the department as well, and expenses.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I don't see it as I'm thinking, I'm not worried about head count number, I'm worried about the dollars, but I don't think it's full dollars is what I'm saying to get the position filled. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe that's the case.
Yeah, so if you had principal planner at the same salary that it was budgeted for FY25, and then you added this position, it would be significantly higher than what this number is now. So since you're reducing that salary, you've reduced the two salaries of the other new hires, you've now got the new position for essentially half the cost of it.
Yeah, that's basically what I was trying to get through in my head here. And do you agree with that, Kyla? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm good. Okay, any other questions, comments for land use and planning? I think we're all set. Thank you very much. Next up, those were the two that raised their hand. Is anybody else chomping at the bit to get out as soon as possible?
I'm happy to go last.
Sorry?
I'll go last.
I think you might be here through the evening, so you might want to, you could go last. So then why don't we go to, I see land use. Why don't we go to finance is you, right? So is that okay? You're here throughout anyway. Human resources. Jessica, please. Welcome, as always.
Thank you. So I just wanted to remind the board and the residents that Human Resources budget supports the recruitment, retention, development, and well-being of the town of Hopkinton employees. With regard to salaries and wages for Human Resources, the total budgeted amount is $168,107, which is a decrease of 5.3% from last year's budget. The decrease comes from a shift in employees. I am not earning what my predecessor earned, and our new benefits administrator is not earning what I had earned. So there's a decrease there in salary. For operating expenses, for HR's total of $124,612, no change from the prior fiscal year. We are able to continue to provide the level of service and support to the employees of the town with the same level of budget that we had last year. We are going to shift with our training budget this year, and rather than have as much of a proactive approach with bringing in trained consultants to provide trainings with the town. We thought this would be a good year to use our training budget to absorb some of the training budgets for the different departments so that they could focus their budgets on services and not have to reduce any of their services. So we have absorbed most all of the other departments' training costs, with the exception of police and fire. We have allotted $10,000 each for both of those departments. And then the compensation contingency fund is a fund that exists to basically cover overflow of salaries. So we have exceeded this year's budget in terms of the contingency fund. It was budgeted for $129,706. We've exceeded that. We had merit increases in addition to a COLA, which was approved. So it wouldn't make sense to keep that level funded. And in addition to that, we are negotiating all 4 of the contracts, union contracts, going into fiscal year '26. We don't know what that's going to bring us. We need to retain the staff that we have now for non-union, so we will need to really look at the percentage increases that we assign to merit increases. So we need to have a significantly larger fund to be able to do that.
Okay. Great, thank you. I love how you have the word recognition in there. And I hope we can do as much of that as we possibly can, because recognizing great work helps everybody and certainly helps the town. You know, we want everyone to be happy in their jobs and being recognized when they do their work well. Ms. Lafreniere.
Okay, what is the bottom line increase for your department?
So if you count the contingency fund, it's
$100,000.
Okay. I guess I'm all set, thank you.
All set?
Yep.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I think the way you set it up shows how HR interacts and supports a lot of the different departments in town. I think it's important for people to see. I guess my only question was, and kind of to everyone, that $500,000, like we said, it's a big contract year with these union negotiations. I think we've already gotten some estimates of where they're starting, right, or they're making their initial ask. Do we feel like that puts us in good shape with the current ask?
We're still trying to firm up what the town can offer, but we'll stay within that number.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Mrs. Ritterbush.
Yeah, I had just a question. For the operating expenses, there's no change from last year, but I thought you said you were absorbing more training this year. So I was wondering, how did you do that without increasing?
Because I shifted the focus. So rather than, say, reaching out to an outside consultant to do training in the town, say that costs $5,000, we're focusing our efforts on paying for the other departments' training, staying within the same amount, and then still having some left over for us to still organize some trainings, but not going over the amount that we had budgeted for last year.
Okay, so you're doing some trainings internally, which, is that what you're saying? So it's a little...
So we do some trainings internally, but what will happen is those departments will still sign up for the trainings that they normally would based on their budgets. It'll just go through HR instead of their own department.
So we took out training from all the other departments within their operating expenses. And HR has agreed to absorb that because they have $85,000 targeted for training. So we're just consolidating the ask.
Okay. Okay, and I understand it's a high inflation year too, so I understand why the contingencies might need to be, higher than usual.
All good? Elaine, you're all in on this budget proposal, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're all in on this budget proposal? Okay. It's an interesting one with sort of the dynamics of the negotiations and everything, how it all plays out. But I think we're in good hands there. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help. Next up, why don't we do the Health Department, please? Hi.
Hello.
Right. Wait, right now. Hang on a sec. So, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. Our initial budget request was for $589,476 and change. We worked collaboratively and constructively with Elaine and Kyla and revised the total budget down to $570,151. This reflects a salary budget of $494,091 and change, and an operating budget of $86,000 and 60. This represents a 14% increase over 2025 and reflects an approval to hire at least one per diem nurse to assist Simone Carter with her regulatory duties. Our regulatory duties over the last year have increased significantly, and a new nurse will allow the bullet points that we see on this slide. The resumption of vaccination and healthcare service, implementation of a foundational public health services mandate that just came down from the Department of Public Health, increased community education programming, and so that work, which is also, the MDPH is pushing us to do that, and it's part of our strategic plan. It should result in a reduction in community disease rates. It'll allow us, one of the reasons why we haven't spent our opioid funding is both youth and families and health it's just outside of our bandwidth right now. It'll allow us to, the increased revenue, some of this will go into our revolving fund. We'll be able to maintain our VaxCare contract, and why that is important for the community is when we're using VaxCare, the town doesn't have any upfront obligations to purchase the vaccine. VaxCare provides it. They take a cut of our reimbursement. It's a much better deal for the community. It's extra work. It's actually a significant amount of extra work on our end, and that's where having the per diem nurses will help us, and it'll allow us to maintain our hoarding contract with the MCDC.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sean, very much.
Kyle's a good coach.
I think I heard you say, so your fiscal 26 salary line is 484,091.57 versus 25, 410, 374, and that 86K is due to, no, is that an 86?
Yeah, to a new position.
To the per diems.
Per diems.
Got it. And we wanted per diems.
Yes.
We need per diems.
Yes.
Got it.
We believe per diems are the most cost-effective in this situation. Okay. And we believe...
It's a level fund.
Right. We believe they exist. We believe that, as before, when we had the two per diem nurses during COVID, that they were the most cost-effective solution at the time.
And it's the 484 number. I think I heard that. 484 is the number. Yeah, I got confused there. Okay, Ms. Lafreniere.
Well, I just wanted you guys, and it says I'm supposed to share this with the board. I'm not going to read it all because there's an awful lot in here, but it's in support of the Board of Health. The Board of Health manages many vital functions. You're aware that the department excellent response to COVID and EEI outbreaks. You must know that the day-to-day duties are very demanding, and their response is timely and efficient, and this is a request for funds to be voted on and released to that department. And it goes on to expound on how wonderful you guys are, and it's a note, it says to share with the rest of the board, and it's from Ann Click, former town clerk, so I have done that. Yeah, it just came when I got here tonight, so I looked at, some of your budget has gone down a little, a lot of it has gone up, but I don't see anything unreasonable, actually, so I'm fine with it.
One thing to note is this budget, it's like youth and families. We're in a situation where 14, the Department of Public Health, which I can pass some funding off to. They're supported by 14 different federal agencies, and there are a lot of concerns that these opportunities that partly exist now and that were to be available in the future are going to disappear. So, we're always looking to identify savings, and we're going to continue to do so. And, any savings that we have obviously will be returned back.
I just wanted to say, having Simone at the senior center monitoring the health of our seniors and helping out with that issue has been a great part of your job. I think it's really done good for the seniors to have their, blood pressures and everything. It's made them feel better about themselves. So having you there means a lot.
Thank you. And you know what? That goes both ways, because it's the best part of my week.
Great.
I'm sure.
And it should be noted.
Yeah, I'm all set.
Always nice to hear from Mrs. Click. Thank you, Mrs. Click. Mr. Clark.
Thank you guys for coming. I think we had you both in back in like late summer, early fall, and we talked about the need. And does this per diem increase reflect kind of what you guys were asking for at the time?
Yes.
It does? Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Mrs. Ritterbush.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate and I support the increased per diem nurses. I know that's been a need this year. And then, let's see. And it says it helps us remain compliant with MDPH and MDEP too, so that's great. I had never noticed this before, the hoarding contract. Is that a new thing that we've done? So it helps if you have somebody in town who has a mental health issue of hoarding, they can help? Or?
So, I come from a risk management background. Having this contract in place allows us to keep our seniors in place. The people that are engaging with the MCDC, they enter into contracts to make their homes safe. We work to make them accessible to fire and police. We work to eliminate potential fire hazards, et cetera, and it allows them to stay where they are. We work with them. We have check-ins with them. As a part of the deal, we provide space at the library if they want to hold trainings. And if we didn't have this, and I was called to go in to get them a house, then we have some potential risk where we have to
They may have to leave their home.
put the resident up, pay for their lodging, transportation, et cetera.
And it's not just seniors.
Right.
It's mental health.
No, I appreciate it. I happen to have a relative out of state who has this problem, and it's a lot of work for us other relatives to help him keep his house safe.
We have a fair
So
number
that's great.
in town, so it's,
Yeah.
it pays off.
All set? And Elaine, obviously, all in?
Yes.
Kyla?
Yes.
Okay. I know we're going through some budgets and we're adding a little here and we're adding a little there, but we're also taking stuff away too. So I see how this is all going to sort of settle out. I don't know the exact dollars, but for those wondering, well, they're adding some per diem and they added the land use director. There's other things that are coming out. So it's going to all sort out, I think, in a fairly neutral manner. Anything else you guys need to share?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't want to exceed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Next up, Parks and Recreation, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, John Lewis, Director of Parks and Recreation. Wait for the slides here. Awesome. So we'll go over a few line items first. I appreciated the approach we were instructed to do here with the bottom up. I started in September of 23, and I think most of my time in the beginning was really taking a look at our facilities, our services, and also our budget. So this is an approach that I really appreciated, and it allowed me to come up with these figures that I'll go over now. So the first one is our personnel, which is an increase, and the personnel includes our 3 full-time staff members in the Parks and Recreation office, and also our Sandy Beach staff, our lifeguards, our gate guards, and our beach supervisor. So that accounts for the increase of the $9,000 and change. The miscellaneous and contracted services, I'm going to hold off on that because that is the second slide of my presentation. The public concerts and movies, those are the ones that we hold at the town common, the movie nights and the Sunday concerts. And our training and conferences, Jessica sort of touched base on the decrease there of why that has gone down to the $3,000. So we can go to the next slide. This is sort of the exact breakdown of the increase and why we are increasing. Again, in my bottom-up level service approach, also speaking with DPW and engineering, we looked at basically all the services in town and have identified some needs specifically for parks that we don't charge services or minimal charge for services, such as the Fruit Street Dog Park, the Town Common, and Sandy Beach. So instead of me explaining what the increases are and the dollar amounts, I've laid them out pretty crystal clear here, and I can go through them line by line, but this is sort of why I have the increase up to the $39,402 of our miscellaneous contracted services.
Yeah, our colleagues on Parks and Rec, I'm sure, have worked with you on that, so we're good there.
Okay, awesome. The last slide, Parks and Recreation does have one capital request, and that is for the Sandy Beach parking lot pavement project. If you've been there recently or in the past couple years, the parking lot continues to deteriorate. Back in 2014, when it was built, the parking lot, to my understanding, there was not enough money in the budget to continue that project, and it's sort of just been left there. If we are to get these funds to take care of this project, it'll help all the patrons who use the park. It'll help our staff with safety. Right now, there's very wide open entrance and exit and no safe spot for our gate guards to stand. So we're looking for a shack to be included in this project. And then also speaking with other town departments in town, police, fire, safety services, emergency services. They have a lot of trouble getting in and out of the parking lot with the way the patrons are parked. The police and fire have a hard time backing in a boat trailer. So if there's an emergency, the way it's currently situated, it's very dangerous. So if we are to get funding for this project, it'll really help in multiple facets. And that's it.
Thank you. Funding source for the parking lot?
Free cash.
Free cash. Okay. And that's in the plan as we have it today. Okay. Good.
All right, Elaine, any questions, comments on that particular budget?
But I did want to highlight, John mentioned it was on the slide, but the holiday lights were included in the.
Just going to say that, yep. Thank you, Elaine. Yeah, on the second slide, you'll see on the right side, the past 3 years, the holiday lights were $9,500. In our conversations this year, we chose to prioritize safety of our parks, so that money was not included. And in addition, the vendor that we've used said, essentially, if we're looking to do this again, the minimum would be $15,000, if not more, to do the holiday lights again next fiscal year. So we chose not to include that in the budget for FY26.
But we could plug into the new light fixtures and wrap little lights down the poles, right? And I could do it on a Saturday, couldn't I?
Possible.
Okay.
You volunteering?
Pick up the trash. All right, Mrs. Lefreniere.
I have to say, ever since I've been on this board, we have been talking about the parking lot at the beach, because originally there was money set aside for it, and where it went, nobody seemed to know. I went through this with Norman, I went through this with previous accountants, and I keep asking, what happened for that article? It was a good number of years ago, and nobody seems to know. And it's been driving me nuts, and I bring it up every year, and I really want to see this project completed. The neighbors have been talking to me, the people on the lake, and I mean, ever since I got on the board, they've been saying, what happened to it? Why didn't it get done? Where did the money go? I've asked everybody, and I can't get an answer, at least not a satisfactory answer from anybody. And but the money was there at one time, and I really want to see it completed.
When I started here, first two things that were brought to my attention were the Boston Common for the marathon, the town common for the marathon, and Sandy Beach. So I hear you, absolutely.
I don't know what scandal you're referring to, or 400 grand disappeared.
I don't know either.
We should make sure we have an answer for that, because someone's going to send us an email about that.
I don't think that it was that much, but it was in the article to redo the beach and everything, and it mentioned the parking lot, and the parking lot never got done. That was a part of it that never got completed.
My understanding is that it was part of the initial funding, and the project itself cost more money, so they sort of left the parking lot last, and then the budget ran out.
So there was an appropriation at town meeting for X amount of dollars. X amount of dollars was spent on the project to fix up Sandy Beach, and then that it's like when you build a school, you run out of money while you don't finish a couple things. So I'm hoping that's the scenario. I'm not defending the great scandal, but.
No, I'm not, and I wasn't trying to make a great scandal. I've been bringing it up year after year after year, and now I've only got 3 months left, and I really would like to see this project complete.
I'm all for getting this done, by the way.
I know you are.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mrs. Ridbush.
Yep, so for the Sandy Beach parking lot, was that approved by the Capital Improvements Committee for free cash? Okay, good. Because I've driven down there and it's really in rough shape. And the holiday lights on the common, perhaps we could get a donation or something for that.
That's my thought.
Or tone down not quite as many lights, which the Historic District would probably appreciate.
We could go out, Amy, and wrap those poles.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we should be ready for an answer on, did we just spend up to the warrant article and that was it?
Yep.
So the lot question gets resolved. But I think it's absolutely time to do it. It is a safety issue over there now. So we've got that scheduled, and I think we're in good shape. Everybody good? Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next up, engineering and facilities. David, I don't know if you were here when Jack Fleming and the folks from the BAA were here. You may have missed it, but I told them the project would be done by the time the marathon came around this year. Do you have any comments on that?
Silence.
No comments.
You're a smart man. Okay, Dave, welcome.
Thank you. I'm just trying to log in here, and it's not.
I believe this is the first engineer presenting a budget to us this year, so this could be interesting.
Yes, I was more numbers than words with my slides. And there was a rumor I needed to keep it to like 5 minutes, so.
It's a firm rumor.
So again, thank you, everyone. In Facilities Engineering Department, we support other departments. We support capital projects, mainly from other projects, and we're responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the buildings. This year, in coordination with DPW and Parks and Rec, we're taking on more responsibilities and less at the same time. The town DPW director went out to bid for town-wide landscaping services. I had some landscaping budget since I've started here. We're trying to consolidate all those funds, and some of that got transferred to DPW. On the Parks and Rec side, we've been coordinating with Jonathan since he started to be able to take some of the responsibilities of maintaining buildings and facilities from a Park and Rec director and getting over to facilities. Jonathan's done a great job of identifying stuff that might not have been done. So it's more of an increase in that area. So there's a lot of plus and minuses in the budget this year. And I've been working with Kyler and on a lot of those. So getting straight to the numbers, there's about an 8% increase in the budget this year. Excuse me. Fiscal year 23 and 24, as you can see from the spreadsheet, if you look at budgeted fiscal year 23, fiscal year 24, and actual fiscal year 23, 24, where we're kind of right on the edge. 23, we went over, actually. There was a few extra expenses and repairs than we had anticipated for, and we had to do end-of-year transfers. Fiscal year 24, we were kind of right on the budget. 25, again, working with Jonathan, we've identified lots of, repairs and invoices that facilities kind of took responsibility for. This year is Jonathan, who can find some budgets for him. So this year we're tracking, again, pretty close to the actual approved budget numbers. From fiscal year 25 to 26, there are no new personnel being added, but again, this year, for probably the second or third year in a row, we're transferring funds from existing positions that have been covered by both facilities and DPW, just into DPW, the other way around, just into facilities, as facilities takes full responsibility for and supervision for those positions. A couple years ago, it was our second shift custodian was also covering the recycling center, so part of the salary was coming from DPW. That position turned into a Monday through Friday for facilities, so that money was transferred to facilities from DPW. This year, we're doing that with the engineering position. I oversee the construction manager. Half of the funding was coming from DPW. Last year, next year, it'll be 100% under facilities. The other addition, it's not additional position, but there's additional hours for our weekend position with the library staying open on Sundays. We had to add some hours for that position. It's been a very hard position to fill for the last 5 years, but we finally had a couple people fill it, and we have somebody else starting, I think, next week in that position. In that position as well, we'll be able to do additional work in the buildings when there's nobody around. We're looking to implementing some sort of painting program and carpet cleaning program that this position will be able to do when the buildings are empty. And that's going to save, as opposed to having vendors do the work. And it's also going to, with the painting not disrupt operations of all the other departments. I can get into the breakdown of expenses, utilities, other expenses, personnel and expenses, percentages, or if you just have any questions you want
Okay.
to ask, you fire away.
Thank you, David. So the 8% overall increase, what is the primary driving factor for that?
I'd say most of that is transfer of funds from DPW for personnel.
From them to you?
Right, and in covering the additional responsibilities from Parks and Recs that we've been coordinating with Jonathan on, that he's been identifying over the last couple of years. We've added.
You also have a new custodian contract?
Well,
and
yeah.
A carpet cleaner that we're purchasing?
Yeah, the custodial contract, we went out to bid, and we ended up having more costs to absorb than the previous one. But
So Elaine, the 8% increase, you're on board with that, and you see where there's some money moving from one budget to another?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Right? And Kyle, you agree with that too? Okay. All right. Thanks, David. Ms. LaFreniere.
Actually, I think the engineering department has been doing a very good job and a lot of human service this year, and I don't really have any questions. The 8% seems okay to me.
Mr. Clark.
I think my only question was the capital, the request for 200K.
I have to go over that, sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to just go over it?
I will very quickly.
All right.
I have one capital project that I'm coordinating with the police department on. It's a first step of upgrade of their HVAC system in that building. This capital request is going to be for a building assessment, final design, and a construction estimate. It's a $200,000 request. What we're going to really do is do some retro commission. With my engineering line item, and they came up with some different options for different systems for that building. There's some oddities with the building. There's one condensing unit for both floors. Back 15, 16 years ago when it was built, second floor didn't get used a whole lot. So I'm not sure if it was built into, maybe in 15 years, the full second floor would be used, and you'd need to upgrade the HVAC system to catch up with that. So that's kind of what the capital project is for, is to really make improvements. We've had lots of difficulties over the last couple of years keeping that building comfortable for the police department.
Okay. Anything else?
Will that be is that an article in town meeting?
Free cash.
Yes.
And
Approved by CIC,
Approved by-
it looks like?
The free cash funding source.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Sure. Sorry about that.
Mr. Rearbush.
I think I'm all set, thanks.
Elaine and Kyle, everybody's good, and the free cash is for that 200K?
Yes.
Okay, makes sense. All right, great. We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next up, Department of Public Works. Welcome, Carrie.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Good. All right, so, hi, Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works. We got a lot to cover, so I'll try to be brief. I can't promise 5 minutes for a significant amount of work. As directed, and as you heard of everybody, we took a bottom-up approach to provide level service from the previous year. So this first slide is an overview, and there's other more detailed slides. And I just want to note, so for the DPW, for the general proposed, we're actually proposing a 1% decrease. And I always emphasize that the only reason we're able to do what we can do with the resources and the budget that we have is because the excellent people that we have on our staff. So we are not proposing any new staff. This is existing, fully staffed. You already heard about some of the changes. We're fully staffed right now with the exception of one mechanic. So if anybody knows a mechanic that's looking for a position, we are definitely in need. And yeah, a few changes on that. So the 8% increase that you see up there for the DPW administration has to do with moving funding for an existing position that's already filled from a different department, different funding source within town. So it all levels out. Just looks bad right there. The decrease in the highway budget is attributed to a few different things, that bottom-up approach. So one, we're not proposing to do a herbicide treatment at Lake Maspinock in fiscal year 26 due to the successful treatment in FY 25. So we'd like to thank the work of the Lake Maspinock Weed Management Citizen Advisory Group on that. So this reflects the reduction in budget there. There's also a reduction in budget for the stormwater management program to bare minimum compliance because we're assuming that the new MS4 permit will not be effective until fiscal year 27. So we're able to do a little bit more in-house. And we also did an analysis of the diesel and gas estimates, and what we have been budgeting had been over the estimates that or the actual usage of the last 3 years, so we reduced that. But I did want to note that DPW provides the fuel island, pays for all the fuel for all the town departments, so that includes the school vehicles, the police, the fire, and the inspectors. But we based it off of an analysis of the actual cost that we spent. So that is a risk that we're taking at DPW to reduce that budget in the request here. Another thing, a big thing, with the highway budget is reducing. There was 2 authorized unfilled positions. And so we did an analysis about, do we really need those positions anymore? They were 4 tree positions, and you will see this movement from the highway budget down to the tree warden budget. So the tree warden budget is showing an increase, but it's actually a more efficient management. So we're, instead of having these 2 salaried positions, we're looking at subcontracting some services. We are consolidating some of the town services across different departments for grounds, parks, and other property maintenance. So it was all kind of spread out, like nobody was it doesn't even matter. Just got moved around. So now the intent is that the tree warden budget would not just be removing dying and hazardous trees. We're trying to build it to a division that can manage like all green things in town. But I do want to point out that that green stuff does not include the Main Street project, which is not done yet or turned over yet. So there's a lot of new green spaces that are going to have to be managed, like new trees, street trees, new green bump outs. That's not included as part of this budget. Then you have the trash and recycling budget. That's increased 1%. This is based on contractual obligations. And I want to take this point to recognize the efforts of the Hopkinton Sustainable Green Committee and their zero waste initiatives. I think a lot of the reasons why that budget can be what it is because of the work that they've done. At the same time, I'm also going to use this time to kind of give you all a heads up that the contracts that we have, so waste and recycling is all subcontracted. The contracts that we have with E.L. Harvey and Wheelabrator are going to expire in FY 28. So I expect at that point when we renegotiate those contracts that we could see a potential large increase. And then along with the other general funds, snow and ice traffic control and other storm controls, we've level funded. So at this point, I would welcome any questions about the operating general funded work.
You have capital items as well?
We do.
Yeah, why don't we do this first, then we'll go to capital. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Lafreniere.
Well, I don't have any problem with this budget, actually, and I can attest to some of the tree work that's been done. And I know one of the signs entering town, you couldn't even see anymore. It was so covered. And I understand that was an extensive job to get that all cleared out in that area, and it's been great ever since. And so I just want to compliment you on the tree work in town. It's been good. Thank you. That's all.
Joe?
I'm good with the operating budget. Thanks.
I just wanted to clarify about the waste budget. So that's good. It's good that we're still within our same contract at waste and recycling. And we're still going to get the same services for now in this contract. We'll get the recycle center on Saturdays, plus the recycling every 2 weeks and the trash every week, right? No change in service for this year. Okay. That's good. As you know, people ask about the trash and recycling on social media constantly. So we want to have those answers. Thanks.
Elaine, thoughts? Good?
Good.
Tyler, good? Good. So I commend you, Carrie. Great job putting this together. It's obvious that you did a bottom-up budget, like everybody, and you got a lot more there, obviously, than some. So well done. Thank you. On the project itself, should we put some money aside, or does MassDOT own maintenance of this thing for a year or two once it gets turned over to us?
Yeah, we'll have to look at that, we'll have to discuss that.
You know, in the construction world, I don't know about road construction, but in my world, when we build something, we own it for a year or two, and we have to take care of stuff and clean, just do all the fine tuning, but we got to maintain it too.
Typically, the trees are planted now with those bags around them that need to be filled occasionally.
Yeah, so we should look into that, and if we have to adjust something before town meeting, we don't want to put this thing in. If they walk out October 15th, whatever their drop dead date is now, which is somewhere around 10, and we don't prep it for winter and, it falls apart, that's not going to be, because we don't have the money, that wouldn't make sense, right? So I think we should check that. That's my only comment. Thank you very much for that. Good job. Next up.
Right. Actually, can you go back to the second slide? Because we didn't talk about sewer and water enterprise operating budget. So it'd be, there you go. So the backup information is in your packets if you had any more detailed questions about stuff. So the next slide is an overall summary of the water and sewer operating budget. So these are both enterprise funded from the enterprises. The water operating budget reflects a 2% increase. We adjusted to comply with a lot of new state and federal rules and regulations in FY25, and that's why the increase was more of a sticker shock last year than it is this year for the water. So stuff like PFAS and the lead and copper rules went into effect this past year, and so now it's just maintaining what we've done. And then also the water reflects some of the development trends that we're seeing, so we don't expect a large increase in new services like we've seen over the past couple of years. So it's kind of plateaued out development. So that also is keeping that budget a little bit more level. And then the sewer is where you're seeing a larger increase. It looks like a 13% increase. This mostly reflects contractual costs that we have for the operations and maintenance of the Fruit Street wastewater treatment facility, which is owned by the town of Hopkinton, and the Westboro wastewater treatment plant, which is owned by Westboro, but we had an IMA, so we have contractual obligations for operating maintenance costs and for certain capital and debt expenses that they incur each year. And as you know, like both of them are aging and they're requiring more investment, and then we're also expecting some evolving regulations that are going to require even more upgrades next year and as we go forward. So that's anticipating that. Also, what we noticed with the sewer over the last year and the growing trend is more and more emergency response. So we're seeing higher flows, especially during these extreme weather events. And so we have to do a lot more emergency response and adjustments because our system can't handle these torrential downpours. And then we have inflow issues, and it just kind of compounds. Again, then we have more sewage in our system, more discharge to the wastewater treatment plants, higher costs.
Questions, comments on these two enterprise funds?
No, gotta get it. Gotta have what we need.
So this is the spend side, this isn't the rate side, right? So we do the rate side at a different time, right? So you good?
Yep.
Joe?
I'm good.
All set.
Is that, you're good? You're good?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that those figures do not include the repayment of principal and interest on debt associated with the enterprise. That's pure operating costs.
Okay. Where do those numbers show up?
So the total budget for sewer is 2.5 million, which also includes indirect costs. And on the water side is 2.6 million.
In terms of debt service?
Debt service, including operating, so debt service and operating.
Oh, gotcha, okay, all right. And so we'll be setting the rate based on those, the combination of those two.
Correct.
When we get to it. Okay, everybody good?
So were those incorporated in when we set the rates back in like the summer? There was a big increase this year, and that incorporated those things into that?
Yeah, we have to send him a debt projection plan for the next 10 years, and that's how he starts to do his projections of what we need to, how we need to build up retained earnings.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So yes.
Yeah.
That when we set that rate, we'll be taking into all this into account.
Yep, I just want to make sure.
Okay? All right, next up?
Next up will be the capital requests. Through all those detailed. All right, we'll go to the next one. So the first are the capital requests under the general fund. And as discussed before, anything that's being presented was, or is planned to be funded through free cash. Yes. Is that correct? So we have the vehicle replacements, a dump truck, a trackless tractor, goodness gracious, alliteration, and then the S24 dump truck. As you'll notice, that's significantly less than the other dump truck, because we heard the feedback of just replace what you need, very aggressive preventative maintenance program. We have one mechanic, but we're still looking for one, again, if anybody knows any mechanics, doing a great job. So they've been doing, in the highway department, a lot of great work of keeping the trucks that we have in good condition. So the one that we're asking for a full replacement is older and really needs to be replaced. The other one, they're just replacing, or recommending replacing the body of the truck. And then the tractor's trailers are what we use to maintain the sidewalks. And as you notice, we have some newer sidewalks downtown that are going to need to be maintained as they go in the future. We did apply for a shared streets grant from Mass DOT. We haven't heard about that yet, to purchase a trackless tractor. But we won't know about that. So we're requesting it at a town meeting, and if we get the grant funding, we'll change our request.
So 3 units, all general fund, all free cash. Okay. Questions?
It's a lot of money.
Do you want me to go through all the general fund capital projects, or do you want to go through them one by one?
Yeah, we'll do these 3 here, and then we'll go from there.
Now, I see one of them is no longer functional, so I understand that. Is like the dump truck at all usable? Could it be sold?
I'm recommending that we trade them in when we purchase the new ones. What we've been recognizing is that the auctioning and the trying to do that is not saving us any money, and it's costing us time and labor. So yeah, there might be some value in trading, but I don't suspect there'll be too much.
Okay. Okay.
Good?
Yep.
No?
All 3 of these CIC recommended?
You'll actually find some items where we didn't align, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Amy?
I didn't have any questions about the trucks, but I just noticed as I was scrolling through to get to the truck section, the signalized pedestrian crossings, that's, is that adding any new signalized pedestrian crossings under traffic control, or just maintaining what we have?
Just maintaining what we have. So that's the operating budget that you're talking about, traffic controls. Yes, so we maintain the traffic lights at the intersections, the pedestrian crossing, the school blinking signs. So that's just maintaining what we have, but as you can see when you walk out the door, there's going to be quite a few new ones that we'll inherit. So we didn't incorporate in that budget because we don't know when they'll be turned over. And as you mentioned, there's a warranty period, so hopefully that'll cover most of that. But yeah, I would anticipate that we'd have to increase our budget.
I think we get complaints about a lot about the pedestrian crossings not being safe everywhere. Okay, thanks.
Yes, people want a lot of pedestrian crossings.
Yes.
What's that?
Yep.
Lynn, you're good on these? Kyle, you're good on these? Okay. This doesn't replace the process of town meeting, by the way. Like, we're building the budget, and we take it to town meeting, and we will talk about dump trucks at town meeting, I'm sure. So all that will happen there as well. Okay, next up, please.
All right. So the next project, skip that one, it was not recommended by CIC. That one.
We're going to do town meeting in May, not tonight.
Those are supposed to be hidden slides. But that's okay. So the next project is a drainage improvement project on Claflin Place. If you're not aware, Claflin Place is located, if you can see in that photo, across from Hopkins and Lumber and near the trailhead for the Center Trail. So if you can see in that picture, there's a little catch basin in there. That's on town property, although a lot of that parking area is not town property. So the town property is somewhere in that dirt area a little bit. Last year, when there was a significant amount of rain, there was some flooding in that area where we discovered that the drainage needs to be improved. So this project would help do that. I would also point out that I believe there was at least an insurance claim and maybe some payments. So there is some liability and cost to the town if we don't do this work.
Okay, questions? Questions?
I just thought some of this property is owned by the respite center too, but part of it is ours, and then it's damaging the road as well, is it?
Right, it's an interesting, yes. It's all of that. So we've got to make sure we put the drainage in the what we own, and we don't impact private property.
Okay, great.
That's good? Okay.
And I think those are the only recommended projects that are going ahead for free cash. The next slide is probably a CPC one, if that didn't get hidden either.
The cemetery.
Right, let's see what the slide brings up.
So Mount Auburn
Yes.
Cemetery, CPC funding. CPC funding is outside of our kind of budget discussions, so we don't need to go through that tonight. That will be a town meeting discussion.
Correct, so we skip that one. So those are the general funded capital projects that we're recommending. All the funding is proposed from free cash. As you saw, there were a few projects that we recommended that didn't make it this far yet. And then the next project will be I believe the sewer enterprise funds.
Okay.
So the first project is at the Fruit Street wastewater treatment facility. You heard me mention it earlier that it's older and there's some things that need to be replaced. This is specifically the screen system, which is at the beginning. Lovely photo there for you all to see, since most people haven't, toured a wastewater treatment facility like us engineers have done. But essentially, it's the first thing. It takes out all the initial stuff, and it's falling apart. So we need to replace it.
All right. Let's keep going through all the enterprise ones together.
And the next one from the sewer enterprise is beginning design for a sewer main replacement project that was recommended as part of our asset management plan. There's a cross-country sewer main that we have a lot of inflow and infiltration issues with because it basically goes through like a wetlands area and in and around Wood Street. So that's the area that we're going to focus on to, again, try to remove that inflow and infiltration so that the sewage that's actually going to the water treatment plants that we're paying for to be treated is just, we're not paying to treat nice, clean stormwater. Again, this project is only for design. Once the design is complete, we'd have a cost estimate for capital cost for construction.
Okay.
So those are the two sewer enterprise funds that are two sewer enterprise funded capital projects that we are proposing.
Okay. And those are going to be paid for through the enterprise fund, through the rates.
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings, got it. Questions on that?
No.
I'm good.
No, good.
You're good? You're good. Okay.
Nobody's got exciting questions about a sewer treatment plant? This is disappointing. All right, so the next ones are for the water enterprise. This is where it gets a little trickier, I guess. So we are requesting to replace vehicles W3 and W1. You might be having deja vu because we requested them last year and they were approved at town meeting. They were on the ballot, they got approved, all that wonderful stuff. And we need to redo that because we were told that they were not valid votes. So those ones are our priority. They're both identified as emergency response vehicles in the town vehicle response plan, and W1 died on us. I mean, failed inspection early state, it died last month. Like, it's not recoverable.
So let's just hold right there. So we need them, right? We got it. Why were they not valid votes?
Sufficient retained earnings.
Yeah, there were 4 projects that were presented at town committee, or at town meeting, and we did not have enough retained earnings to do all 4 projects. So when we met with the DOR said we can't pick and choose which of the 4 to use up retained earnings. All of them became null and void. So we have to resend them.
Making sure we have enough. That's news to me. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, so you will see an article at town meeting that officially rescinds what we did in '24, and we will issue new articles in '25.
Okay.
That is too bad if there were 4 projects and we could have maybe gone forward with some of them, but they said we couldn't.
We could have gone 2 of the 4, but they said everything was null and void.
Okay. Well,
Live and learn something new every day. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Any other questions, comments on this particular capital project or purchase?
they seem necessary.
Everybody
No.
good?
Good.
Elaine, Tyler, we're good now? Okay. All right, anything else, Carrie?
Yep, so this was another project that was proposed and approved at town meeting last year.
Same scenario.
Same scenario.
Okay.
Everybody good?
Yep.
You want to keep going with this? Okay.
So these, the trucks and the flushing, we're proposing out of retained earnings. Right, because what we have retained earnings is enough. So the next 2 projects would not, because we do not have enough retained earnings.
Correct.
And how would we fund those?
That's what the discussion is all about.
So, because now we're getting into the ratepayers paying for, not paying for this town, but they're paying for the water, but they're not, people around town are not necessarily paying for the water, but they're paying for this.
Well, that's what we have to decide, right?
So you're saying this last year was,
No, go past Grove Street. I think we're on the next one, right? Are we talking about Grove Street or the next
We're
one?
talking about Grove Street Water Tank. Yep, the next 2 projects, so this is the first one.
Okay.
so last year they were voted in to be paid through retained earnings, voided because of, lack of retained earnings. And so now the recommendation or the conversation tonight is to use free cash? Is that, or
It's a borrowing, whether
borrowing again?
borrow from free cash or borrow from issuing debt. That's what we need to discuss.
Okay.
But keep in mind, Kerry and the water enterprise, we weren't able to do anything last year. So we're behind times now, so we have to prioritize.
Do you guys have a recommendation as to how this should be paid?
I hate the word borrow, but knowing that we're behind, I think we need to do something to move water enterprise forward, especially given all of the feedback around water in this town. So whether it's, if we have free cash left over and we actually use that as a loan.
Which we have done in the past.
Yep. I think that's a consideration that we need to look at, go into the flexibility comment, but I don't think we can afford to wait.
But the ratepayers will pay for that loan, however.
Later, yeah. or
But it's the
when we said-
ratepayers and not somebody that's not on the water
Right.
system. Right, okay.
But it's all determines on free cash.
Okay, is that a decision for tonight or is that a town meeting decision?
I think it's a decision that we have once we understand our free cash balance, because if we have money that we can lend to the enterprise, I think we have to make that recommendation.
The town of Hopkinton has loaned money to the enterprise in years past on a couple of different occasions, so it's not unusual. And why not borrow from ourselves if we have it, instead of going to the bank and spending more? Do we have to charge ourselves a rate, or can we just do a straight-up cash deal?
I don't know, I'll have to look at that.
Okay, I think we can leave it here for now, and you can go with that guidance. Everybody seem reasonable with that?
Yep.
Everybody
And we'll
feel
see
good?
about the free cash.
You okay with that? So let's leave it there for now and keep going.
Okay. Through the chair. We also looked at authorized unspent projects that are still in the books that we, so we've identified some of those. So I think a combination of all that would be presented at annual town meeting.
Yeah, so we'd want an answer, a clear answer for town meeting, but in general, it seems like that's, what this board anyway is suggesting.
All right.
And since it is super confusing, the clearest, most succinct slide we can have about it at town meeting, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, this money from reappropriated funds, this money from free cash.
Carrie and Kyler are going to do a great job at town meeting at the microphone explaining that one.
Okay.
Once we get done talking about dump trucks. So the next project.
One sec, please. I'm going to accuse myself of this one.
Oh, that's right. So I guess you guys still have some quorum. So you should-
Yeah, and Mary Jo's in charge now, so.
Lovely. So the last project that we're recommending is for engineering and permitting support for the MWA connection. So as we mentioned earlier, we have enough funding that can get us up to 60% that was approved, I believe, at 2022 annual town meeting. But to move along with this, if we move along at the pace that we're hoping to move along with, that money will be spent, hopefully end of probably beginning of FY26, and we'll need additional funding to keep the project moving along. And instead of waiting again another full year, we're requesting it at this point.
And what would the funding source be? The
Borrowing.
Borrowing from the free
Right.
cash.
Ideally, I think initially planned, the previous appropriation to fund all the support services we need, and then when we got to construction, any additional construction support, engineering support, we could build into the construction or the overall budget, because we're going to have to come back. Because this only gets us to a certain point. It doesn't actually build the infrastructure, which is the big ticket item.
So this would be borrowing from free cash or borrowing from?
Free cash.
Okay.
All set?
All set. I'm all set.
No, I'm good.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Kind of a regular occurrence, I think. Okay, anything else, Carrie?
That's enough. Yeah,
That's a lot.
That's everything.
Well organized, very thorough. Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
Thank you.
Lots there.
Can I ask about the ones that were not recommended by CPC? Are those will be on the warrant, though? CIC, sorry.
No, they weren't recommended by CAC, and they weren't recommended through the town manager's office. Oh,
Okay, so they won't be on the warrant this year?
no.
Okay.
But that continues to show a backlog of work. I mean, it's not like the projects go away. The roads aren't getting in better condition, so eventually we will need to do that.
Okay.
All right, you good? Everybody good? Carrie, thank you very much. Next up, we'll do finance, then we'll do the town managers. But before we do that, just real quick, and I forgot to ask earlier, my fault. When the town clerk was here and he presented his budget, and if I remember then, I would have asked him then, his salary is voted on at town meeting and is generally an annual increase, correct? It's a reasonable number, and Connor does a great job. Because it's not that at all, but that's accounted for to some fashion or some extent in that budget that he presented?
It's part of the contingency number.
Or the contingency on the other side with HR. Got it. Thank you very much. Okay, finance. You have 3 minutes.
Well, I have one slide. Well, I'll start. So responsibilities of the finance department include the assessor, treasurer, collector, and we have payroll, so a staff of 8 people. We have salaries in FY26 being requested of $696,000 versus $681,000. The pure difference is the COLA and merit increases. We are fully staffed. This is the first time this department has been fully staffed in a while. We have had literally 70% turnover in the past year. So this past year has been focused on training, education, cross-training, just really trying to build up the experience within the team. Our expenses have actually gone down, so we're requesting $270,250, which is a decrease of about $5,000 from FY25. When I looked at what was done in the budget in the past, there were 3 different departments within the finance department. I consolidated it into one. We all operate in the same department, so we didn't need 3 separate line items for office supplies, et cetera. So I consolidated it down to one. So the total operating budget between FY25, FY26 is only a 1% increase, which is pretty basic for a staff of 8 people. The 2 areas of focus as we move into FY26, you heard in the technology budget that they have included a line item for a new payroll system. So that's really important for accuracy and transparency across the town. It does not support the school, but we do need it for the town. The other thing that I have done is I requested a grant, a community compact grant for new budgeting software. This is so antiquated to have to input one number 5 different times and then for the town accountant to then have to input it again. If we get the grant, it will cover us for FY26, and it will automate the process, provide accurate reporting, as well as allow transparency to the residents. So we'll see what happens with that. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, comments? Ms. LaFrentz.
I just hope you get the grant, that's all. Nothing else.
I'm good, no questions.
So if you got the grant, that would cover it for the first year or so, and then we would have the operating expense.
Correct.
But do we currently pay something for a different budgeting software?
We don't. It's all on Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. All right, so we will have to account for that then next year. Okay, thanks.
You presented your good
Yes.
with this budget as presented? Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Next up is Town Manager's Department.
For town manager, there's a number of different line items that that I have slides for here. The first is the office, town manager's office, select board office. Slight increase in personnel expenses and a decrease in expenses. Some of the changes include, eliminating our support for Restaurant Week, Holiday Stroll, and we have an economic development tool embedded in the website, the local Intel subscription. Reduced our conference line item a bit. We have increased costs for town meetings, with closed captioning and printing, and some of our employee training, as you heard, is covered by Human Resources.
Okay.
The next slide is animal control. This supports 2 part-time people, the animal control officer and the animal inspector. Slight increase there with the merit and COLA increases that were given this year. And, to review the expenses, we reduced it a little bit in looking at what the actual needs are.
Okay.
And then there's a line item for Select Board that nothing has been spent from for several years. It's been carrying $2,000 each year, and I thought this might be the year to reduce that down to 0, since we haven't used it. Most of the expenses of the board to attend events and so forth has been covered by the town manager's office. Next slide, we have other general government. And so this is where we're budgeting for the electronic voting. We're increasing that this year. We under budgeted last year, and we had, a special town meeting where we used it. So we're raising that to $15,000 to cover that. We have a public relations firm. It's a nice to have. I did reduce that in an effort to reduce costs. I think we can manage with a lesser amount there. For town reports is the printing of the annual town report. The cost has gone down. The audit, as you see, every year we pay for the audit, was here this evening. And then our transfer from the town side to the water enterprise for related to fire protection and water use there. And then a town hall line item, we usually budget about $8,000 for some contracted need that comes up during the year for this building. Some things happen that we need an emergency spend for that's not covered anywhere else. And then for the Veteran Services, so the town is a member of the Metro West Veteran Services District, which includes Ashland, Holliston, Hopkinton, and Medway. And this is this town's portion of those costs. Actually, since I wrote this slide last week, we had a Veterans District meeting on Monday, and so the actual cost for this will go down to just about what it was for FY25. So it'll be a little bit of an increase, but not as much as 1%, which is shown here. So this is the town's portion of the cost for the salaries and benefits that go to Hopkinton veterans. And then for the celebrations, there's a celebrations line item in the budget. There's a small amount of money available for Memorial Day flags or other expenses. And then we have been budgeting for $30,000 for Family Day since Family Day was began a few years ago. And that covers any expenses that the private nonprofit doesn't get through fundraising. So it may be the cost of the fireworks or other details or something like that if they can't cover all their costs.
Okay.
And then finally, we have employee benefits and insurance. And this covers all town and school employees. It covers all town property and buildings for unemployment insurance, Medicare tax, life insurance premium for employees, the health insurance premium, Middlesex County Retirement System contribution, and the blanket insurance premium. So overall, an 11.3% increase, including the 12.9% for the health insurance next year, which is within, so for other communities, I've seen anywhere from, 11% to a 25% increase for communities this year. And that's it.
Okay. Questions, comments for the town manager's submissions? Mrs. Frenier.
No, I don't have any questions. It all looks fine to me.
Okay. Joe?
So on that last one, you were saying those insurance, like premiums and everything, you said kind of what you were seeing from your peer group is 11 to 25, and we're right at 11?
We're at 12.9 for health insurance. So
Okay.
that was for health insurance. Big increases this year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Amy?
I don't think I have any questions on this one. It's very well explained. I think I understand it all.
There was a time when we spent a lot of time and energy talking about the health insurance line item. And, it was, I think, running in $5, $6, $7 million at that time, and the increases were $1.2 million, $1.4 million, 20, 30%. And we would get ourselves all tied up in knots over that line item. And now it's at $15 million or whatever it was up there. And that's the least of our problems right now in terms of balancing budgets and things like that. So are we still working that number though? Are we finalized for FY26 on that plan or?
So we have asked for another product to add to the products that we offer, and that would be a high deductible HSA plan that hopefully people would select, and that would reduce our costs for premiums. So it may come down a little.
Yeah, this was always one of those line items too that we would work right up until, May 1st or something like that to figure it out. So yeah, I'd be interested in continuing that effort, right?
Yes, we are continuing.
All right, great. Okay, with that, I think we could call it an evening for item number 7 on the agenda. Do you agree? Good?
Yep.
Everybody else good?
Yep.
Any last thoughts or comments? All right, great. Thanks, everyone, for going through that. That's a lot of numbers coming up.
Just one more comment. At the next meeting, you'll vote the budget at the next meeting. We'll have the final numbers for everything.
So where are we with our colleagues in appropriations and their review of all this too?
They're ready to go as soon as you vote.
So we vote to send to them, they do their thing, vote to send it back to us, then we vote to send it to town meeting, if I remember correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
They start their meetings March 12th, and it will go every Wednesday for the next 4 Wednesdays.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to item number 8 then in the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The board will consider the following consent agenda. There's an appointment of a constable, Jason Vaz, as a constable in the town of Hopkinton. There's 2 parade permits, a triathlon at Hopkinton State Park and the Wicked 5K. There's a board and committee appointments, to the Hopkinton Historic District of Linda Connolly as a nominee from the Historical Society with the term expiring June 30th, and Gina Harper as a nominee from the Historical Commission with the term ending June 30th, 2026. Anybody want to break anything out in the consent agenda?
I don't need to break it out, I just had a question, though.
Sorry?
I don't need to break it out, but I had a question, if that's
Sure,
okay.
go ahead.
For the, Gina Harper for the nomination for the Historical Commission, did they vote? I was thinking they were meeting tonight.
They voted earlier this evening.
Okay.
I've been informed that they did recommend. Yes,
Okay,
they did.
great, thank you.
What's that? Anybody want to break anything out?
Nope.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Item number 9, May 5th, 2025 Annual Town Meeting. The Select Board will consider reviewing the draft annual town meeting warrant, discussing language of its articles, and reviewing draft Economic Development Advisory Board charge, an alternative to the town, as an alternative to an annual town meeting article. Ms. Lazarus.
So it is getting late. You do have the warrant in front of you. It's up to you whether you want to, how much time you want to spend on that this evening. Shadul's not here to discuss the Economic Development Board, so that could wait also.
Our articles we've discussed 2 or 3 times now, the ones that are ours, that we're sponsoring.
Well, right, but this one is,
Right?
well, this one needs more discussion, but Shidul's not here.
Right, the economic one, yeah, but I'm saying the other articles that we put forward, I'm not looking at the exact words of it, but we'll get to that at some point. So is everybody good with just tabling that for now?
The one thing I would
Wait
ask,
for Shidul, there were 3 that
there were 3, yeah.
that we
But if-
didn't really close out on.
If you had any questions or wanted people to come and appear to talk about any of the articles, something for the board to consider as you read through the warrant.
All right. Anybody have any thoughts, comments on anything they want to put on the table now about this?
I just wanted to mention about the draft Economic Development Advisory Board, and I know we're not going to vote it tonight, but some thoughts I had about it. Well, I wanted to make sure the planning board was willing to have a liaison before we voted that. And then I was hoping that we might maybe add a little bit more language about like the focus of why we need an economic development board, because I'm hearing a lot of confusion in the community that people maybe are not understanding. But I was thinking that it was kind of similar to, we had that financial plan working group a long time ago, that the idea is to try to help use economic development to help solve the, the structural deficit that we have, being a primarily residential town. And then also to improve quality of life, which is one of the select board goals from a couple of years ago. Like, people are missing certain businesses that we used to have downtown, like Colella's, and economic development downtown could improve things for residents too. So I want to make sure residents are understanding, how it could benefit them.
Okay.
Those are just my comments.
Anybody else? All right, so we'll table that for this evening, Elaine, and come back to it as we get a little bit closer to town meeting. It's going to come down to the motions now, too, right?
Yes.
All right, let's go to item number 10, which is the town manager's report, please.
So regarding the Main Street Corridor project, as we heard earlier, Eversource has completed nearly all of its overhead and underground work, and the overhead lines have been and are being removed. Comcast is starting to install lines in their underground infrastructure, and then they'll start pulling their lines to the buildings, and then more wires will come off the overhead. Verizon will also start once Comcast is done, and existing utility poles located between the police station and Ash Street will be removed by Verizon, and they may remove the poles as their work progresses and remove them once all their work is completed on that schedule. Okay. Just an update on the municipal aggregation plan. The DPU approved Hopkinton's plan, and the next step would be to go out to bid for an energy supplier. So that's going to be starting this month. Have some meetings scheduled to move that project forward. So
Okay.
residents should stay tuned. And then there's a couple of town department position vacancies that we're looking to post. The first is kind of a sad thing, that Eric Cardy, our water and sewer manager, is looking to retire in the fall, unfortunately, after over 40 years of service to the town, which has been an amazing time for the town and for Eric. So for this critical position, the goal is to have the new manager in place for up to 3 months before Eric retires, so that can have a transfer of knowledge and get everything, a smooth transition. So asking that we can post that position. In addition, DPW is looking to hire a summer intermittent laborer, and that's the request also.
Okay. So keeping with our approach to double checking these things before we post, the chair will entertain a motion to approve posting for a water and sewer manager position within the town of Hopkinton.
I move to approve the posting of a water sewer manager and DPW summer intermittent labor positions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for both positions, okay?
Can I just ask a question? So for the 3-month overlap, we have funding in the current budget to, could we have paying 2 salaries at once, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked about, if there isn't enough, using perhaps the salary in the water enterprise fund for that.
Okay.
All right, everybody good? So there's a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Item number 11. Now we'll move on from the town manager's report, and the agenda is to liaison reports. Anybody have any liaison reports? Ms.
Yeah, I do. The MWRTA is having a ribbon cutting for the next generation vehicles that they bought on Monday, March 10th at 11 a.m. Refreshments will be served, and come and see the new vehicles. So I have the invitation here.
Okay. Mr. Clark, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Amy?
For the MAPC, their winter meeting is tomorrow, and I wanted to check with the town manager. Are you able to attend on Zoom, or, because they need people for quorum, I guess?
I'll be at Metro West Partnership meeting.
Okay, I'll try to just dial in. It's just an inconvenient time of day for me. Okay, I'll see if I can dial in then, or maybe they won't really need me for quorum. And then I noticed it's the season of Ramadan, and I think we've been invited to 2 different iftar events, so it would be nice if some of us were able to go to some of those. There's one tomorrow, and the other one I think is not a week from Friday.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Future board agenda items. Let's not review what's out there this evening. We're still chipping away at. And I think when we get ready for town meeting, we'll take a couple more of these off. Does anyone have anything new they want to add to a future board agenda?
Tomorrow's at the high school.
Nothing new? Joe, anything new?
Sorry, I missed that.
Anything new for future board agenda items?
Nope, nothing new for me.
Okay. Amy?
No, plenty on there.
All right, I think I'm good there. And then item number 13 is an executive session. Elaine, do we need to enter into that executive session?
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody would be kind to make the motion for the executive session, which is on the back of the page.
I move to convene an executive session, A, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate land at Assessor's Map R12-10-0, R24-26B, U26-70, and U26-8A, because of an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. The approval of executive session minutes, to allow Elaine Lazarus and Lansdale Priori to participate in an executive session and not to convene an open session after the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote. Ms. Lafreniere.
Lafreniere, yes.
Joe Clark, yes.
Amy Rudabush, yes.
Brian Hurd, yes. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.